On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're exploring the charming world of Tudor-style homes. First, we visit Wellesley, Massachusetts, where interior designer Katie Rosenfeld showcases her beautifully renovated Tudor home, lovingly transformed during the pandemic. Next, in New York, Erin, Coren, and Lina Galvao of Curated Nest invite us into Erin's family-friendly Tudor, where history meets modern luxury and imagination. In Alabama, artist Patty B takes us on a tour of her stunning 1920s Tudor Revival, blending bold patterns, antique treasures, and her own artwork into a vibrant, timeless space. Finally, in Dallas, we explore interior designer Amy Smith Atkins Tudor home, where antiques and contemporary design come together to create a personal and meaningful living space. Watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Katie. Welcome to my house in Wellesley, Massachusetts. Let's go on in. Hi, my name is Katie Rosenfeld. I'm an interior designer in Boston, Mass, and you're in my house. I would describe my house as very super personal, very warm and cozy and livable and real, layered. I think it's really representative of who I am as a person and also as a designer. And almost every one of my clients I bring here, or we use pictures of my house as references when they're scared to let me sort of layer things. All right, so this house, I think the whole essence of this house is that it's a Tudor. It has arches, it's got messy plaster walls, it has all kinds of Gothic references, and I wanted to really play on that. So my foyer is little itty bitty, but when you walk in the house, there's some old reclaimed terracotta tiles that would be very indigenous to a Gothic house or a house of the Tudor persuasion, shall we say. And there's a cute little built-in bench that is original to the house that I had upholstered in like what I would call a Jacobean tapestry. I was going for like real literal Tudor, but I made it a little funny. And how I did that was I put some quirky art in funny places so that all the seriousness was lightened up a little bit. I could have had a coat closet, and I essentially don't have a foyer. I mean, it's really just sort of almost like an arrival. It's not a grand foyer. It's kind of tiny, but I could have built a coat closet, but it would have meant losing a window in my living room, which I wasn't willing to do. So I have three ways of handling coats. One is that I throw them on a chair. That's one way. The second way is that I hang them on one of these really pretty bent wood hooks that I bought from Austria that are so fragile that nothing should be hung on them. So that's another place where I hang coats. We throw them on this bench. I really just don't get too hung up on it. And also the fact of the matter is we've only lived here for a year and a half, and most of it was COVID. So talk to me in a year and we'll see what the lack of coat closet brings. I would say that I am sort of typical of the self-taught decorator model. I did not go to school for interior design. In fact, my career started on Wall Street when I was super young, and I was in recruiting, kind of a people person, right? So that can be sort of folded into all kinds of careers. And I majored in philosophy and art history, no idea what I wanted to do and no practical application. I really landed on this accidentally. Long story short, I worked on Wall Street, was very unhappy, decided I wanted to leave. I left when I got married. My husband afforded me the possibility of, making a career change, and I started selling art. And I was using my home as kind of a gallery salon kind of a situation. And people would come in and they would buy art. I would have these parties with 100, 150 people. They would buy art and then they would email me or call me the next day and say, you know what, I really loved your kitchen. Can you help me renovate my kitchen? And this kind of thing started happening. So it just literally morphed into an interior design business with just me writing orders on a piece of paper and sort of phoning them in. And now I have like a legitimate practice with multiple employees and projects all over the country. I mean, it really is a career that happened like a happy accident. So now we're going to go into, I guess, what you would call the living room, but it's actually 3 different distinct spaces that combine to form my living room. Come on. So this is my living room. It's actually 3 distinct spaces that combine to form one great big sort of modified open plan living room. I think that what originally this was, I feel like this little area over here was possibly a seating gathering area, and I think the fireplace, which is across on the other side of the room, was where people sat to get warm. And then in the room behind, it was a garden room. I know this because, and I'll show you, when we were renovating the house, number one, the floor is tile. It's clinker tile, which is like a really old-fashioned kind of cheap brick. And I also found a hose in the wall, which leads me to believe that they did potting in here. And I kept it because I just thought it was super funny and I knew the drapes would cover it. And I almost didn't want to forget that there was a hose in my wall. So I think this used to be like a potting shed, sunroom. Now it's an office / seating area. Over to the left, I actually have a comfy seating area with a great big TV. And it's the first time I've ever had a TV in my living room, and I love it. I'm sure I'll get criticized for this because it's not like standard operating procedure to have a TV in your living room, but because of the amount of TV that my family watches, I will put a TV anywhere a TV can go. So we do have one on the wall, and it's actually not ugly to look at. I mean, it's not like the prettiest thing on earth, but it's also, it's one of those frame TVs. It was a very easy decision for me to change careers from something that made me like deeply stressed and unhappy to something that made me feel like alive and inspired and all of that stuff. Forgetting about the financial aspect of it, of course. But I think the hard part is just when you're doing something creative, you're really putting yourself out there for people to look at and to criticize. So it's really hard. I think the hardest part for anybody in a creative industry is finding just like their sea legs and their confidence and being comfortable putting what they have to offer out there in the world, especially with all this technology, for people to dissect and copy and criticize and screw up on certain occasions, and all that kind of like noise that happens surrounding it is the hard part. But I think it all stems from confidence, and that's something in my 50s I'm literally, I think, hitting that stride right now. As a younger designer, I was like, I was a whirling dervish. It was a mess. In this zone is like the relaxation zone. I wanted it to feel like grandma's house had been revived. That's why I did kind of a wild pattern on the sofa, which you're seeing a lot of right now. It's like coming back, but I've always been kind of a granny decorator at heart and a real traditionalist. So this is something I would have done many years ago, and I'm still doing it. So the sofa has this large scale pattern, and basically what I tried to do in this house, believe it or not, was my main focus was I didn't want anything to match. So I wanted it to feel as though it had evolved and grown and mishmashed together. That's why the rug doesn't reference the colors in the pillows, and the colors in the pillows don't reference the colors in the other rug, and so on and so forth. So in a sense, this room is like, I think, my biggest decorating sort of fun thing to do, which is to put disparate objects together and make them work together, even though they wouldn't in isolation, if that makes any sense. A good example of that, I think, is the fact that the rug is pink and light sage green and blue, and then I've got pillows on this sofa in like a deep purple with gold and turquoise, and I've got these crazy embroidered pillows that have red and green and turquoise. So, you know, you really, if you look at each element, it really doesn't necessarily match the other elements, but somehow once they're all together, they really work. And it's little teeny things for me, like basically the cover of this book is the same color as the orange in this pillow. And that's the kind of connections I like to make in rooms, like little sort of very discreet connections. And that's when the decorating, I think, looks the best to me. So we bought this house during the very, very height of the pandemic, like during the time where people were like Lysoling their groceries and wearing gloves and like ski masks when they went outside. That was when we bought this house. No one came to see it, which is why we got it so quickly. I mean, it was really like serendipitous timing. But it's a 1926 Tudor that really hadn't been touched. There had been some modifications to the kitchen and the bathrooms, I'm gonna say in the 80s. It reeked of 80s. The kitchen looked like the Olive Garden. But other than that, it really hadn't been touched since it had been built. And we embarked on a full-scale, like mainly cosmetic, but somewhat surgical renovation of the house during the real height of the lockdown, which was super challenging, but also kind of exciting at the same time. These are lollipops. We're big candy eaters, and this is like a half empty jelly bean mix. All the good ones have been eaten out at Thanksgiving, but we're big candy eaters, so I always have candy out. I have a lot of collections. That's something that I got from my mom. I mean, she's sort of a hoarder and collects a lot of things, as do I. In here, I have a lot of tulle. Tulle is like this metal, it's like a metal material that's been painted over. And you can see here, this is like an old tulle tray. But I collect tulle and plates, trays, platters, whatever. So I've got one here, I've got one here. I've got a bunch in my kitchen. So I love to collect things, and tulle, this is tulle actually. It's a jar. The other thing I like to collect is needlepoint, and I like old vintage needlepoint. So here's a pillow that I bought on First Dibs or Cherish or one of those sites. There's another one over here that also is vintage needlepoint. It has butterflies on it. But these are the kinds of things that I like to throw into my designs that don't necessarily make sense until they are placed in the room. And I love that it feels collected. This, for example, is my grandpa's chair. It's Danish modern, and it's been in every house that I've ever had. And these guys are old vintage. I do a lot of vintage mixed with new. But a lot of the things that are my favorite things are things that I've had forever or that I've collected over time. So like these lacquer James Mont vintage chairs were something I bought early on when I was really into chinoiserie. This campaign style table, I love campaign style anything. This was on a tag sale at the Baker showroom when I was just starting out decorating, and I could afford it, so I grabbed it. It's been in 7 houses. This desk I found at consignment. It's actually a partner's desk, which means it's double wide. So theoretically it was made for 2 people to work at. And it's just huge. And I thought it was so cool. Again, it has a lot of these like kind of chinoiserie accents that work so well with any style. So I've had this forever. This is my husband's grandmother's desk chair. You know, a lot of this is just stuff that I love that I throw together. But there's also some new things. This bench is new over here by the window. And I had it made just for this space. So that's new. And a lot of the upholstery and the like TV area is new. But the most fun thing for me to do when I'm decorating is to mix things that I already have with other things that I find along the way and new things. That's my favorite thing to do. So, I mean, I'm not the kind of gal that's going to stand on a soapbox and talk about historic preservation and the environment and preserving this and that and the other. I just don't think I have a platform to tell other people how they should behave. But in my case, when I see an old house with a lot of architectural integrity, it makes me super sad when someone wants to break it apart or knock it down and sort of lose the bones and lose the authenticity and the integrity of the house. You know, I can't judge someone. People do it all the time, but I think it's really important for me personally to have a house that has some history and that has some quirks, and it kind of fascinates me to think people lived here before and what did they do in the space that I'm sitting in. I'm just not one of those people who loves everything perfect and new. So renovating to me is much more appealing than building from the ground up. But there's tons of clients I have that could say the exact opposite. So the fireplace area is one of my favorite aspects of the house. There was a lot of talk at the beginning of the project about redoing the fireplace. It's not exactly the most gorgeous thing you've ever seen. The stone is kind of like got a little bit of a rusty patina to it, and it's very Tudorial, very Game of Thrones. And I could have refaced it and done it over in millwork, but something told me to leave it, and I did, and I'm really glad that I did. I found these two like almost throne-like chairs at consignment, and they felt perfect for in front of this particular fireplace. And then mounted above it is a deer that one of my clients gifted to me. Again, this being a Tudor and the whole English thing and the sort of Cotswoldy theme, I just thought it was kind of like perfect to have a piece of taxidermy over my fireplace, even though I myself do not hunt and did not hunt that deer. I love him. His name is Big Papa, and he was gifted from one of my very favorite clients. So one crazy thing that I really love that happened during my renovation was one of my Instagram followers was following the documentation of my renovation, and she somehow noticed in the details of the architecture of my house that it looked a lot like her husband's grandmother's original house. She lives in New Jersey. She had no idea where the house was. She thought it was in Massachusetts, which it is, but she reached out to me and said, you know, is this house in Wellesley, Massachusetts? And I said, yes, it is. And she said, I think this is my husband's grandma's house that she built in the 20s. And I said, really? Can you know, we started a dialogue, and she sent me all these original pictures of the house when it was first built and the family that moved in. And it's just an awesome story. They had two little girls. I think the grandma was called Bubby or Bubs. That was the grandmother. And I've got all these photographs of the first people who built this house sitting in this room with this fireplace, which is awesome. The one thing I think I should bring up before we leave this room, and it really kind of carries throughout my whole house, is that forever and ever and ever, I've collected art. Not necessarily important investment grade art, but things that I find in various places that I love. Things that I bought on the internet, things I found on the side of the road and had reframed, things I bought from artists that I saw and could afford. You know, it's not like I go to a gallery and go shopping for art. All of this stuff is hodgepodge. And a lot of it, quite honestly, the frame costs more than the piece of art. But to me, that's the best kind of collection of art to build, is to have vintage mixed with new. So I've got some abstract pieces. Like over here, for example, is a good example. I have some abstract pieces from an artist that I know in New Jersey, mixed with an old family portrait of someone, I can't read his name, but I bought this in Connecticut. And it's absolutely gorgeous. And I have no idea who he is, but I do love collecting pictures of people I don't know. So I love the foil of the really ornate frame and the portrait juxtaposed with the clean, abstract, modern pieces on the adjacent wall. Let's go in the kitchen. So this room, I think, is probably, this has got to be my favorite room. And it's the room that required the most effort and the most attention, and the room that I really, really, really wanted to get right when I renovated this house. It's a tiny kitchen. It's not big at all. And the one thing that's unusual about this kitchen in the United States is that it's based on a European style. And what that means is that the cabinets back in the day in Europe, when you had an apartment or a flat, you would have kitchen cabinetry that was just kind of affixed to the wall, and when you moved, you would take it with you. So the concept is that your cabinetry was unfitted. Now, in modern times, a lot of kitchens you'll see are cabinets that go all the way to the crown of the ceiling and are really built around an entire room, completely built in, not at all something you could take with you. I wanted this kitchen to feel like it was back in the day. So if you'll notice, a lot of the pieces are mismatched heights, and there's a ton of asymmetry, which I happen to love, and that's what I chose to do in here. A really good example of that, again, is this kind of stovetop run where I chose to put this little sink in here, which sacrificed counter space, but I really liked the way this looked. So I put it in, and of course I needed to have a sconce and a shelf above it. But in all seriousness, like if you look at the visual lines here, you've got this shelf, then you've got this short run of cabinetry, you've got the mantle, which doesn't connect to anything, and then you've got this larder, which is where I keep all of my food, believe it or not. And I can show you inside. It's a little bit of a mess, but it's really hardworking, and tons and tons of snacks and stuff like that. But what it basically is all about for me is kind of forcing myself to live in a restrained way. So I don't have storage for storage's sake. I don't have empty cabinets. All my cabinets are filled, and I'm okay with that. The other thing to point out, which again is quirky, but I really love, this area, I had to decide if it was going to be an eat-in kitchen, and I could have turned this area into a great big table and maybe a serving piece. I could have even wrapped the cabinetry around, but I really love TV. I've kind of already said that. So I wanted to be able to watch TV while I was in the kitchen and kind of scoot over here and watch TV while things were cooking. So I chose to make this a sitting room instead of an eat-in kitchen. So the area adjacent, sort of the L of the kitchen, is this cozy little couch area with a TV and a storage piece and some funky art and plants and all that kind of thing. And so while dinner is cooking, people are hanging out here, and it's super fun. I mean, if we want to, we can eat at the coffee table, but most nights we eat at the, I call it the work table, because it's not really a kitchen island. It's elevated on legs, and it doesn't have a sink in it. So there's storage on one side of it, which is this side, and a lot of storage for deep pots and pans. But the other side is really kind of a counter height table. So my family of 4 sits here every night for dinner. So 3 on this side, 1 on the other, right here. My favorite thing about this house, gosh, that's a super hard question. I don't know if I could pick a favorite thing. I think the fact that this actually happened to me and I got to live here is my favorite thing. As corny as that sounds, I feel like it was really meant to be, and the universe really drew me to this crazy house. I typically am not attracted to Tudors, and this is heavy, heavy Tudor. I just fell in love with it the minute I saw it, and I feel like it saved my family. So that's kind of, I see it as like my fortress because of that. So I know that sounds super like corny and, you know, gooey ooey, but it's really kind of the truth. So this is my dining room. It's right off the kitchen, as you can see, which is an ideal location, and this is where it was originally. This room was so dark and so depressing and like such a Debbie Downer when I moved into the house. All of the woodwork in my entire house, including these cabinets and all this wainscoting, was natural oak. So it just had a really heavy, dark feel, and I chose to paint all of it. And I knew I was going to do that, and I knew that that's also something that's controversial, I think, in Tudors. But, you know, I did it, and I love it. The dining room, again, is kind of petite. It's really a 4 to 6 seater dining table, and we do eat a lot of meals here too. One thing, to the point I was making about the eat-in kitchen, I have this new philosophy that I don't want rooms that don't get used. And in my old house, we only sat in the dining room for holidays or parties or that kind of thing. I am addicted to pattern, and that's clear in my decorating. And a very old school way of dressing a lamp is to make a custom lampshade that's a pattern. And so a lot of the lighting in my house has these pattern lampshades. They're really nostalgic. They're kind of kooky and crazy. Again, something you might see more over in Europe than you would see here. But I just feel like it gives the lamp a lot of character and almost turns it into like a piece of art, as opposed to just having a plain white shade. So you'll notice even in my living room and throughout, when we go to my bedroom, you'll see I've done a lot of custom pattern lampshades. I think it's so subjective, right? Like, the fact of the matter is there are some people that would look at this situation and say, this wallpaper is like paper bag brown. It's got a teeny bit of purple and green and maybe some terracotta in it. What on earth made you put a turquoise lamp with a brown lampshade with it? Well, I think that's the whole point, is that it would have been really easy to put something green there or brown there that matched, but I really wanted to throw everything off. That's why I chose the blue, because there's no blue in this room other than in the rug. And again, hearkening back to that whole thing that thrills me about decorating, which is the purposeful non-matching of things. That is how I did it. I mean, I just didn't put a lot, I kind of did the opposite of what intuition would do, if that makes any sense. I took what would match and then thought, well, what wouldn't match? And that's how I chose it. One of the main big decisions we had when we were renovating this house was what to do with the woodwork. All of the woodwork throughout the house, all the beams, all the trim, all the window casings were this kind of chestnutty colored oak, and very tutorial, but very dark. I chose to paint most of the woodwork, but the one thing that I decided to leave was the staircase. I wanted the banister and the stair rails to feel and to be authentic to the house. And I'm really glad that I did that. I chose to paint the risers the same color as my off-white trim throughout to lighten it up just a little bit. But we have like kind of a grand staircase, and this is really what sold me on the house in the first place. So it was super important to me that I get this stair thing right. Come on up, I'll show you. So you walk up and you sort of hit this Juliet balcony situation, and I knew that I wanted to drape these windows. I just feel like it's so cozy and so sort of, again, there's just this nostalgic feeling I get every morning when I wake up and come down and see this like really pretty big old balcony window with drapes on it. So walking down the approach to and from this window is actually probably my favorite architectural aspect of the house. And then when you walk up, the stairway has a lot of quirk to it. There's this really strange situation, which I think used to be like some sort of roping off for the public. I don't know. But again, I left it because it's just so odd and so funny. But the staircase has this really graceful kind of unusual kind of an S-turn at the top, which you really don't see a lot, and it's just really romantic and pretty. So I love it. So right off the stairs is my bedroom. Come on in. So as you can see, this bedroom is kind of chock full of one print. This is a really kind of aggressive way of decorating, and it's not for the faint of heart, but I knew when I saw this house that my room needed to be draped in flowers. That being said, I didn't want it to be super colorful, which is why I kind of ironically chose a floral print that is neutral. Go figure. But that's what it is, and I basically camouflaged the whole room in this print. So the bench is covered in the fabric, the walls have the matching wallpaper, my lampshades match, my pillows match. I wanted to do the bed and the drapes, but my husband drew the line and said, enough. Eventually I will do them, but for now, just white. The room is really dreamy. When you're in here at night, you really feel, I feel like I'm in like an English garden, and I feel really cocooned and protected, and it's my special place, my Zen den. Bed in front of the window. This wasn't really an option with the layout of the room, and it's not ideal, but as you can see, I have drapes behind my bed, and I floated the bed just a bit proud of the drapes. And it's really not that big of a deal. This is the kind of thing a client would ruminate over. But it's fine, right? And I've got 2 nightstands and another view, lovely view out this window where my shade is broken, and I can't show it to you because it won't go up. But if it did go up, you'd see something pretty. This is the bathroom. This is like sort of ground zero, I think, for my house, for so many reasons. Number one, I think it's the first room I actually saw in my head. I knew I wanted this wallpaper. I knew I wanted really dark, old-fashioned hexagon tiles, so I chose this really dark gray marble. And I knew I wanted my bathroom vanity to feel like a chest. And that is actually a whole other story, but fast forward, I'm now launching a line of vanities that are inspired by old chests. If you look at it, it's literally like a piece of furniture. Instead of being cabinetry, I chose to have all of the bath vanities in my house be freestanding. So if you'll notice, it doesn't go wall to wall, just kind of like my kitchen. Same concept, unfitted. I wanted it to feel like a piece of furniture rather than cabinetry. So that was the intent here. And you know, it's specific. You have to like embrace the imperfection of it all, and the fact that you're losing, you know, 3 inches of storage here and 4 inches of storage there. But for me, the aesthetic part of it was more important, and to add these details like the trunk handle and that sort of thing were the fun part. I also have wooden toilet seats in all my bathrooms, which I really love. People who know me know that, and I think you can probably tell just from me talking, I'm hardly shy or introverted, right? I'm comfortable speaking and I'm fairly extroverted, but you wouldn't believe what a homebody I am. I actually spend almost all my free time at home. It's like kind of pathological. So home to me is everything. I live in every room. I move around the house. I watch a lot of TV. We have TVs everywhere. I'm a big believer in making your house, adapting the house to your lifestyle while having it be compelling to look at and interesting and layered and beautiful. But the most important thing to me is being super comfortable and shutting the door and shutting the rest of the world out.
Hi, I'm Lina.
And I'm Erin. Welcome to my house in Rye Brook, New York. Come on in. Hi, I'm Erin Coren, and welcome to my home in Rye Brook, New York. I'm an interior designer with Curated Nest, and...
Hi, I'm Lina Galvao. I'm also interior designer at Curated Nest. We are the co-founders, and we started off as friends who started a business together in 2016.
So I was previously living in New York City, and I felt like every winter my husband and I would take the tour out of the city and see if we wanted to stay or go. Every year we came back missing the city and feeling like we just weren't ready. And then one time we came up, we saw the outside of this house. My face was basically pressed against the window of the car door, and I was like, that's my house. We came back to the city and it just didn't feel the same, and we knew that that was it.
And then I came back from a 2-week vacation, and Erin, we get to our office, which was in Brooklyn at the time, and she told me I'm moving, and I'm like, what? I leave you alone for 2 weeks and you decide to up and leave the city? So it was a big surprise for me, but really exciting that Erin found her dream home.
So when I saw the house, I always knew that if something was gonna get me out of the city, it had to be something really special and unique. This is a really interesting house because it's not just a Tudor, it's a storybook Tudor. So it has the round turret, the slate roof, the Juliet balconies, and it just felt incredibly special and one of a kind. And it just felt like a magical place to raise my children. But the downside is it was actually on the market for over a year. It was the house that everyone was scared of, essentially. It had pink shag carpet, it had stars stenciled on the wall, deep red paint everywhere. I think there was like peppers and tile. So where other people came and saw the house listing, basically ran off screaming, I came in and it was love at first sight. Because I knew that I could really put my spin on it and make it something special.
We've met over nachos. So we were living in Brooklyn at the time in the neighborhood of Park Slope. Very family-oriented neighborhood. We had just had our first babies. Our kids were
9 days apart.
Yeah, 9 days apart. And we were 6 weeks in to being new moms, absolutely terrified.
I go to I can't remember, it was off of Flatbush.
A mom meetup.
But it was like a mom meetup for everyone with January babies from 2015. And Lina was there with her mom, and we just totally hit it off.
Yeah, it was so cool. We were sitting across from each other. What are the chances? It was
with the babies in the bajorn.
The babies attached. We're eating nachos. You know, what do you do? What do you do? Oh, I'm an interior designer. I'm an interior designer. Yes, we got so excited. From then, you know, we became mom buddies, interior design buddies, regular buddies, you know, and then we decided to start a business together because we really felt like we shared a similar philosophy, and, you know, we were friends, and it just felt like a really wonderful collaboration.
So we're currently in our formal living room. This is the main room that you really walk into right from the foyer. So this is the first space that the guests really see as they enter the house. We really wanted to maintain the exposed beams that are on the ceiling that are original to the house. That was really important for Lina and myself, that we wanted to stay true to the overall style while still incorporating a look that is just like a more tailored, more updated design aesthetic for modern living with a family.
Yeah, and I mean, I love Erin's living room because it feels so incredibly cozy. It has all these warm colors and tones and textures that are just so inviting and just make you feel comfortable.
The other thing that has a specific Tudor aesthetic is it's known as like very dark homes. So we wanted to make sure to keep the overall Color palette, very light, very neutral, very airy, but then we still wanted to have a lot of contrast. So we picked a lot of pieces that still maintained that deeper, richer feel, whether it's a stained or if it's like a black painted piece of furniture. A lot of textures and textiles was really important to us. This was one of the first pieces that I purchased back in 2017. This is kind of one that I really consider to be like the heirloom piece, and it really helps to hold all of our holiday decor, but everything is nice and concealed and clean, so no one knows what's hidden behind here, that it's really all my holiday decor. And even this piece right here, this is really, it looks like a nice formal sideboard, but inside has all of the games. So my kids really, they come in and they, play Monopoly and checkers, and everything has a place for it to go to. But then when the doors close, no one would be the wiser. So it still feels like a very formal living room, which is nice. So the other thing as far as the space goes is because it is the formal living room and it is a relatively smaller house in terms of suburban homes, is we wanted to make sure that this room can really function for multiple purposes. So while we can entertain, have people over, whether it's, kids or adults, our kids can still be in the space. So when we bought the home, it had a lot of architectural details, and we wanted to really implement the use of all the architecture as much as possible. So where they had a built-in cabinet in the archway, there's actually a hidden TV behind. So if we wanted to use the space for, watching movies, we can use the space, even though it's a rarity. We also have a gas-burning fireplace that the previous owner put in, but maintaining the original mantle and hearth. And so, everything here is original from over 130 years ago. And so I'm very much an introvert. I like to just kind of cozy up on a chaise lounge. I read probably 200 to 300 books a year. So I definitely wanted to have a chaise lounge, which my dog Piper is making the most of currently. She speaks my language. So, even though it's like it is a living room, there has moments where it's like one person can be in here or, a family of 8 could be in here.
And one thing we notice a lot about people who move from the city to the suburbs, there's a lot of new developments, a lot of new homes or homes that were built in the 90s, and they just don't have this level of character. So you see like all of the walls are plaster. So you see this texture here, and you can see that the walls are also curved at the edges. That's a really common feature of Tudor homes, which we love. And so we really wanted to embrace that and highlight it and not hide it or straighten anything out, and really just let it be what it was meant to be architecturally.
So because a Tudor house can be kind of characterized as like it's very heavy, it's very serious, a big thing with Lina and I is we wanted to have some areas of whimsy. We always want to have in all the houses we design like that one unexpected item of like, I didn't see that happening. So we really went back and forth on what that moment would be. So we did put in wall-mounted plug-in sconces that has a really cool, intricate arm. Both of them also articulate, so it just has like a really nice aesthetic. It's almost artistic, and it just kind of like creates something that's just a little unexpected and a little whimsical in the home. This sofa is just like a nice, like deep, comfortable sofa with a variety of pillows from one of our wholesalers. We felt like it framed out the window really nicely. It has a really cool curve along the back. So this would be one of the pieces of furniture that we would categorize as a little bit more of like the updated traditional aesthetic, whereas the coffee table has this flat reeded detail that goes around, which is like a timbre. And this would be like a little bit more contemporary. So we like how the two styles balance each other really nicely, but it's still a really big, chunky piece of furniture that grounds all the different seating groups together. I think the big thing as far as this room goes is architecture is really the focal point. That's really what speaks. If we design a house that does not have a lot of architecture, then we might add wallpaper, we might add contrast color of trim, but in here, there was so much interesting architecture between like the curved fireplace, the beams on the ceiling, that we didn't feel like we really needed to add much. It really spoke for itself. So really it's more about layering, adding those textures, bringing the elements that makes, what would be like a big oversized room with heavy details feel a little bit more warm and inviting. So that was a big thing that Lina and I worked on, is having those moments where it doesn't feel like it's a serious room, but one that's like really comfortable that even your dog can take a nap on.
Yeah, I mean, this chaise is the best. It literally gives you a hug when you lay down in it. And this texture is not something you would expect in a formal living space. It's kind of like a shearling wool, and it's just so cozy. It's a visual texture as well as a tactile texture, and that's just a really lovely combination. And it kind of makes you remember the space a little more. You have that like tactile memory, which I really love. So texture is really important in the way that we layer our designs, and I think Erin and I are both very much in favor of adding lots of texture in all of our projects, and it just worked out really successfully here.
As the homeowner, everyone always thinks like, oh, like you're an interior designer, like it just must come like so easy for you. But designing your own home is just like a whole different animal, especially when you have a very specific architectural style that I know that we could have just been like, commit to, the Tudor, very traditional look, but I would have gotten tired of it over time. So it was really important to incorporate the team and put together just like a really nice cohesive design that felt even fresh for me. Like I actually felt like one of our clients. It was really nice. I was like, you guys treat me so well.
It's true. I mean, Erin would do some work on it, and then we would do some work on it and show her what were the things we had found and how we were thinking of putting it together. And eventually we got to the final result. But there's things that like are super contemporary in here, like these side tables and the piano bench or piano ottoman that you wouldn't think to expect in a Tudor home.
But the piano is a really important thing for us personally, because it's not just like, oh, it's a formal living room, so you should put in a piano. I play piano, so it was really important for me to kind of have that moment, because I grew up with a baby grand that was like 150 years old, and I couldn't bring that up from Atlanta. So I actually found this piece, which is a spinet from the 60s. And I actually found it in an estate sale because I didn't want to have like a really heavy, bulky, upright piano. So I love the fact that it has the brass legs and it has the little brass details with the music stand. So, it has a really nice moment in the corner. And my kids will sit here, they'll play piano. My son plays violin. So we're able to really have it be like a music room area. But it feels still formal and in keeping with a formal living room moment. So with mirrors, it really does reflect natural light. The fact that you have the French doors that go out to a balcony, we really wanted to mimic the two sides. So having a piano that's a heavier black material, we wanted to make it more symmetrical on the other side. And we felt because we had a piece of art on one side, we didn't want to be too matchy. So we love this mirror that actually has a hide material, but it's a really nice, like thick textured detail that then ties in the spots over to the ottomans. So it has a nice, wayward of moving your eye around the different areas of the room.
So a fun designer idea for you to do in your own home if you don't have the time or the wherewithal to hire an electrician to install beautiful sconces, you can always get the plug-in variety. Nowadays, a lot of the sconces that are hardwired also come in plug-in form. So that is a great and easy way to update your home decor with lighting. And lighting is kind of like a sculpture, especially in the case of this one. So highly recommend that tip if you're in a pinch.
So it's really interesting. Designing your own house is completely different than designing for a client. It's so personal and there's just endless options. And especially being a designer, you like so many different styles. So the first thing that I did is I ran to Lina and I was like, we're doing this together. It's really nice because we can work together to create an interesting spin where it doesn't look like the expected style that you would see in a Tudor home.
Yeah, and honestly, Erin had barely even closed on the house and we were already drawing floor plans. We were so excited. It also meant a chance for us to expand our business to the suburbs, even though I was still in Brooklyn. And we were just excited to jump in and really transform this house and really make it look and feel like Erin. and also make it super functional and a place where she could raise her 2 kids.
The first step that we had when it came to revamping the house is taking it from what happened with previous owners of the 80s and the 90s, where they came in and tried to update a style from, you know, a house that was originally built in the 1930s, and kind of give it some new life. Where most Tudor homes is really dark and moody, this actually has a lot of natural light. So the first thing that Lina and I really wanted to do was, before moving in, we wanted to create, you know, a lot of light, a lot of you know, updated, you know, items in here to really just not make it look so heavy, but then still give time to live in it and see how we were going to use the space. Because, you know, from coming from the city, it's a completely different way of living. And so we wanted to take the time to do a mild update, but also take a year and really live in the space and see what we wanted to do.
I think there was certain aspects of the house that didn't function well. For example, the kitchen had an awkward layout. So it was angular, it was kind of a funny space, there was an awkward booth. And then the passageways from the kitchen to the dining space and the living room was a little bit closed off. So those were the things that we learned very quickly in the first year that wasn't gonna work for Erin and her family.
When I first bought the house was back in 2017, and the style was very like modern farmhouse, very light and airy. We did feel like the design trends were going a little bit moodier, a little more traditional, very natural color palettes. So the new style is kind of going to like a modern cottage look. So we did do a recent facelift to kind of update and give like a refresh into this new style. So we're still keeping some of the traditional details and elements, but it's more updated and a lot more modern for the family. So the dining room is off of the living room as well as the kitchen. With the formality of the house, we wanted to still make it feel like it is a formal dining room. A lot of the new builds, it is like very open. You know, you have the dining space directly off of the kitchen, a family room right off of it. But we wanted to keep the integrity of the house. But we still wanted to feel like it's a little bit more modernized. So where there used to be a door that would open both ways, a double-sided door, we ended up creating a really big arched casement that still feels like it's original to the home, but functions for our family better. And then we wanted to also maintain all the architectural style, but we wanted to have, like, once again, that really fun element. So Lina found this incredible wallpaper, and I really feel like it just like grounded the entire space.
Yeah, this is what's called a mural wallpaper. So it's very, very large scale, and it's kind of like a pictorial of a scene. So you see, you know, the beautiful flowers, the birds. It's a very traditional wallpaper, but because it's oversized and overscaled, that's the unexpected moment. And that's the wow factor when you walk in and you just see these huge birds and peonies. And
it's like a modern interpretation of like a chinoiserie.
Yes.
But yeah, it's sometimes you will see like a bird's eye kind of staring at you, and it kind of creeps you out a little, but it still has its moment. Yes. So we do enjoy the space. But so we wanted to maintain the original corner built-in cabinets, and we just gave it a refresh of paint to just really tie in the color of the beams. But then the rest of the furniture, we wanted to still once again have that blend of not being so serious and so heavy. So we did tie in more of like a mid-century modern chair that has more of like a golden pecan finish and the cane backing, just to kind of make it not feel like so heavy and so traditional, but just adding like a little bit of like a masculine vibe with a more feminine wallpaper. Giving
that nod to the Tudor era, if you see this rug, this is actually an indoor-outdoor rug, which is great for dining rooms. Because it's very easy to clean up. You don't have to worry if you spill on it, very easy to clean. But the checkerboard pattern is so traditional of British design, and so is the Tudor style of architecture. So by bringing this rug in, it's sort of an homage to the original architectural style of the home.
That's really how Lina and I came together, is the philosophy of like livable luxury, where at face value, it looks like it's really put together, it's really luxurious. It might be, you know, incredibly expensive to some people, but in reality, you know, this is a really inexpensive indoor-outdoor rug, but no one would be the wiser. But then at the same time, it's, you know, our family can really live and function, and we don't have to worry so much. Like we can just like be and just live and enjoy our time together. I love the idea with a dining table of having the end chairs be a little bit different because it has to be more exciting, you know, to just be like, this is my chair, and it's a race to the best chair for my husband, of which I always win. So I love having the more like upholstered, you know, the bigger chairs at the end, really comfortable. You know, I'll find myself sometimes just sitting here with my laptop and just like working in the evenings. So it allows me to want to be in the space and be more comfortable, but at the same time, it really fills the space nicely by just having some like beefier, like nice upholstered chairs. And then behind it, this piece was the first, it's actually the first piece that I actually bought when we closed on the house. Yeah. So this was from one of our vendors called Tudor Revival. And it was like one of their new ones to the line. And it's funny because I picked this color, it was a custom finish, before we even did anything else. And I actually think it looks so much better now than it did when I first bought it. But it basically stores all of our, you know, formal china, things that we need to hide, all the placemats. And it's nicely tucked away in this like little window seat area. So it's out of the way, but it still brings in some nice dimension with the lines.
One of the things we tried to keep really consistent throughout the home is the color palette. So you're obviously seeing this beautiful coral sort of pinky tone in here in the wallpaper, in the pillows, and then you see the same in the living room with the pillows and decor. So it was important for us to use sort of a more limited palette because it is an open space you can see from one room to the next. So we brought in a lot of these kind of salmon-y tones and a lot of deep greens as well. And then of course neutrals. We love our neutrals.
And it's a really nice transitional color. So, you know, even seeing how it kind of flows from the living room into here, where it does feel a little bit more feminine with the chinoiserie, you know, palette, then as it then goes into the kitchen, the colors just really flow nicely with the mixture of contrast and warm elements. This piece I love because it has the lantern aesthetic that you would see in a more traditional home, in a Tudor, but then it has that nice eclectic look of having the brass, almost like a Sputnik that's like interior of the lantern. And it brings in, once again, that little pop of masculine with a room that is much more feminine. So you get that nice eclectic push-pull, which I think just makes it look interesting. And, you know, being a designer, we always want to kind of push the style, push the, you know, the look a little bit of like unexpected. So we can just have fun with it.
Yeah, this is actually a pendant that we've used a couple times. We used it in another home, which was a Greek Revival, is very much a different style. And because it's a lantern, it lends itself to a lot of different styles. But I love how just that hit of brass in the center really makes it come to life. Our team is 9 people, and we had input from a lot of our team members in working on this project, just like we would with any other client. And as Erin said, it's really hard to design for yourself. You get in your head, you start second guessing. So it was really nice to have our whole team be able to provide input, especially since it was such a personal project. But I think an area where we definitely collaborated really well was the kitchen.
It's incredibly functional. You know, having 2 young children, you know, Lina and my philosophy is very much on independence and fostering that selfishly, so I don't have to go and get a thing of string cheese or a cup of water every single 5 minutes. So it was a big deal for Lina and I to break down every detail in that kitchen to make sure that it's very functional, it's very, you know, I'm actually very short, I'm 4'10". So, you know, making sure that everything is able for me to reach from like lower down so my kids can access everything themselves. So Lina helped me to really like finite every single detail and make sure that it was gonna function and adapt for our family. So off of the formal dining room is the nice, beautiful arch that really combines the 2 spaces into the kitchen, because it's not a new home that has, you know, the family room that's off of the kitchen. So we wanted to still make it feel like it is nice and open and flows. So we took out the double swing door and we created this moment. So as you come into the kitchen, it feels like they flow together really nicely. with a focal point definitely being this wall with a stove and the floating shelves to the side.
So you can see the backsplash that Erin chose is Calcutta gold marble. And the reason we love this variety of marble is because it actually does have this beautiful gold veining. So it doesn't feel cold. Like some marble, you see it and it's very gray and white. Here you have a lot of variety and movement, and it just keeps it really interesting, especially since it goes all the way up to the ceiling.
And because we really do use this kitchen, I have to be really careful with my countertops to make sure it's pristine. But we did decide to go with a quartz countertop just so we didn't have to worry about, any staining or etching. So by having the natural marble on the backsplash, we're allowed to then have that beauty of the natural element, but then the function and ease of cleanability on the countertops itself. And then, as the big focal point, I wanted to have a big 48-inch range. So we got an Ilve range that has that nice, trendy look of like that old world, style. So it can look like I'm a master chef, but I am not. So being the fact that I am short stature, having like a lot of the tall upper cabinets that you used to see back in the day just doesn't function for me or my family. So we really wanted to opt for lower cabinets, lots of storage, so everything has function in its place, but then that allows us to open up the walls so that way we can have more decor. I can still use it functionally, but it just feels a little lighter, airier, and it has a lot of character. So it just feels almost like it has a nice casual moment without just being wall-to-wall cabinets of, plates and dishes. Some of the accessories that we ended up putting out here have a lot of meaning to my family. The art that's over there, the oil painting, my husband's grandmother actually thought that this was an antique and a real Rembrandt, and even took it to Antique Roadshow to find out it is in fact not, and was worth like $1. I'm pretty sure the frame is worth more than the print, but that had to make its way just so I can just have that nice family history of what could have been but was not.
I love that. I didn't know that story.
Yeah. We wanted to put in a beverage center, as well as Mom wanted a coffee maker, priorities. That way my kids can come in, they can grab a yogurt, they can grab a bottle of water. All of their water bottles and cups and plates are lower down in drawers, so it's really accessible to them, especially now when the new refrigerators that are panel ready are pressurized, so it's really hard for them to open it, as well as even reach the higher up shelves. So a big part of this was making sure that it was really efficient for my children. In turn is then very helpful for myself. And then because we have the function of these two appliances, we didn't want it to feel like it's just another kitchen appliance. So our team came up with the idea of creating a gallery wall. And once again, this is that like modern cottage approach of feeling like almost like an English countryside, having the different pieces of art, because this is actually a TV. Happy 40th birthday, Andrew. So his whole thing, my husband, he really wanted a TV in the kitchen, and I come from the era of I don't want a TV in my kitchen in every room. So this was basically the compromise, is having a Samsung frame TV, but then piecing it together with all the different pieces of art, so it feels like it's just part of a collected art gallery. And so, no one would be the wiser, including my children who have no idea.
Really? Yeah. You've managed to hide it from them for that long?
It's a need to know.
So when Erin first moved in, we knew that the first thing that she was going to tackle was the kitchen renovation. This kitchen was renovated down to the studs. We've made some upgrades recently, but the floor plan has remained the same. So when we initially looked at this kitchen, it had a banquette here, an eating banquette, in this sort of angled area. It felt very awkward. You couldn't really get in and out of it very easily, and the person who got in would essentially be stuck in there. So it didn't flow well for our family, and the island was undersized. It just didn't make a lot of sense. So we kind of re-envisioned this kitchen to be completely different. We really centered all of the family activity around the island. This serves as a prep space and a dining space. And it's really generously sized, so you can kind of accomplish all of your activities there. On this side, we have this beautiful brass sink that overlooks the backyard, which is a lovely way to appreciate the garden and also to let in natural light. So important in a kitchen.
For all the dishes I'm not cleaning.
For all the lack of dishwashing we do.
Paper plates are just as sufficient.
Yes, they are. But you know, it was a challenge to get to this point originally when Erin first moved in, because when you have an angled wall situation like this, there's so many ways you can configure a space. And we also had to contend with some structural issues. So where you see this big beam, on this side of the beam was an addition many decades ago. And on this side of the beam was the original home. So you start to see how a previous homeowner might have pieced this together, and we just completely took it apart and re-envisioned it in a new way. So part of the big kitchen renovation that was done was bringing in an addition. So this space did not exist when Erin moved in. This is the mudroom and laundry room. And it's a great space for Erin's family to come in, drop off their things, backpacks, boots, all the kids' stuff and equipment that we all have in our homes. So she felt, and I felt, it was very important to have a space where she could enter the home, feel organized, calm, get her Amazon packages, and then enter the beautiful kitchen space.
Basically what Lina was saying is this was the original entry to the back of the house, being the fact that our driveway, everyone parks in the back where the carriage house is. So walking in, it would be layered with shoes to the side, backpacks on the floor. You know, I'm very big into everything should have a place, you know, behind closed doors. So we can really function and live, but I don't need to see everything and it'll just give me anxiety. So this was a really big, important addition to us. And that's why we always say, like, take the time to live in a home, really see how you're going to use it, how your family is going to function, because that's how you're going to get the best design. So we intentionally spent a year of seeing how we're going to really adapt into the space before we even broke ground on this area. So we knew walking into the space, we wanted to have a really cool Dutch door. So that way we could open up the top that's separate from the bottom and just feel just like very tranquil, very, you know, nostalgic.
Feel the breeze.
Feel the breeze. So that way then when my kids come in, they all have their own cubby. So that way they can put their backpacks, their shoes, bulk storage above. You know, this really kind of framed out the wall so everything has a place for it to go and it doesn't just sit out on the floor. And then we created this other built-in cabinetry area. So you have a bench seating so my kids can sit and take their shoes off. We have different seasonal storage below. So we have one that's a summer side and the other is a winter side. But when you walk into the space, it almost feels like it is like a foyer. Like it doesn't feel like you're walking into a mudroom or walking into, you know, a laundry room. Like this is actually one of my favorite rooms of the entire house. It's just the unexpected. It makes me actually want to do laundry. So.
Okay, let's not go that far. So one of my favorite things about this space is just how kind of moody it feels, even though the walls are white. We did paint all of the cabinetry this dark green color. Benjamin Moore is our go-to, and this pewter green color is just lovely because it changes with the light. So right now we've got a lot of sunlight, it feels a little more vibrant, but in the evenings and early morning, it just has a little bit more of a gray feel. So you get a lot of variety. And then you've got the wallpaper on the ceiling, which is so beautiful and delicate and dainty, and it's almost like a nod to the wallpaper in the dining room. It's a lot smaller scale, but it has the same motifs. So that's kind of how we brought cohesion through all the spaces.
The other thing being that this is an addition and it's not original to the home is that this is one of the spaces that we actually did have to bring in a lot of detail. So we put in shiplap in our phase 2 on the built-in here, as well as on the back wall, just so we have that architectural moment. While we didn't want to have beams, we did draw your eye up to the angled ceiling with a tray. And then, as Lina was saying, you know, having that moment of kind of drawing your eye up to the higher ceilings, having the bird motif wallpaper, it really kind of brings that moody element that we were really wanting to capture. So like, I love this space. I think it's like a really nice moment as you're walking in, and it's also incredibly functional. So I think we work incredibly well together. Lina's background and my background were completely different. I was an interior designer, you know, through college. That was my only career. So I had experience working with other firms, and before I met Lina, I had a firm of just me and an assistant, and she actually came on and started assisting me. So we got to see how we worked together and how we, you know, supported one another, which was amazing. And Lina's background is in consulting and more of a corporate industry. So where I lacked on that experience, she had tons of experience. So it was just like the perfect blend.
Yeah, and as you said, it was a little serendipitous because we were also going through a huge transformation, which was becoming new moms. So we were really there to support each other, and we really wanted to build a business that, you know, supports other women, and we've grown it in that model. And I think that's been a huge shared goal for us.
And I think the big thing that is different is there's so many interior design companies, and we came together with a philosophy of livable luxury. So, you know, after seeing all of our friends who are having babies, you know, starting this new transition of, you know, having kids and wanting to buy their first home, and they didn't know how to invest and how to make it functional, and they were afraid that everything was just going to get destroyed. So they ended up having completely empty rooms with the mindset of, later when our kids are older, we'll invest. And we're like, there has to be a better way. So we put our brains together and came up with the idea of designing with a lot of, you know, function, a lot of thought, you know, using durable materials, but it's in a way that you don't see it. You don't have Pottery Barn storage and everything concealed and vinyl or leather everywhere. It's designed thoughtfully, so that way it can live to the messes of family living.
We really don't want to just design for Instagram. We want to design for real life, because ultimately when we leave our clients' homes, they're going to live there for a long time and hopefully enjoy the space. So it's not just about making it beautiful, it's also about making it functional and sustainable over time.
So going up the stairs, we do have a landing, and an interesting part of this design is when we first bought the house, there's actually 2 areas of stairs. So we created this arch and decided to basically block in the stairs because they were really narrow and really steep, and they went right to the kitchen, which we didn't feel like we really needed. So we did create this nice like landing moment where we have bookshelves. It kind of is a nice visual as you're coming up to the space, as this is the primary bedroom landing and floor area, and then there's another few stairs up that goes to the kids area. So it kind of creates a nice landing, a nice moment as you're then going into the primary bedroom. So this is my primary bedroom. We did a lot of details into the space. It's actually a very, very big room. It's about 25 feet wide. So coming from New York City, having a much smaller bedroom space, I basically lived in like a full size or a queen size bed for the entire time until I basically moved here. But because it has really high ceilings as well, it was really important for us to bring in a nice poster bed. I always feel like it's a really nice moment to just kind of draw your eye up to, once again, like the cool architectural element of the space.
And then actually, if you follow the line of the bed, you see this beautiful statement chandelier, which is relatively modern for a traditional home. And it, again, adds that unexpected element.
So when we're dealing with a house that has a lot of architectural elements, we might not need to add a lot of details. But in the master bedroom, I really wanted to have wallpaper. I felt like it kind of created a nice, like, cozy environment. But because we had really high ceilings and the fact that I am an interior designer, I didn't want to select a wallpaper that I would get tired of. So it was really important for me to find one that felt just like very calm, relaxing. This is kind of my retreat away from, a busy day. So Lina and I selected this wallpaper, which is really interesting because it's a floral pattern that basically is from the ground all the way up about 2/3. And then the rest of it is wallpaper up to the ceiling. So it actually has this look of being like a hand stenciled design, even though it's actually wallpaper. But it's a really neutral, warm color, so I don't feel like I'm gonna get tired of it.
So I love this little vignette over here. We're bringing in really rich tones of wood and rattan. Again, we were dealing with the same issue of plaster walls, so very hard to hardwire new lights. So we opted for a plug-in sconce, great solution for when hardwiring is a challenge. And I just love how it all came together. This is super functional as a reading light. It's super decorative, adds dimension to the wall, and just the rich tones against this very soft, neutral background. It's just stunning.
Being the fact that we have, a lot of the contrast that's in the furniture, we wanted to go like light and neutral for the rug. So it's a nice plush color, has like a nice like wool, material to it. So it's very durable. My dog has been challenging me on it. So far I have one, but we shall see. But it just really grounds the furniture together really nicely because it is a very big oversized space. So having a larger primary bedroom, I love the idea of having the little moments of just kind of, not just being about like the main pieces, but having a seating area. We went back and forth when we were designing the room of whether or not I was gonna have a reading nook, whether I was gonna have like a desk, but I didn't wanna have an area where I thought of work while I was relaxing in kind of my own personal oasis. So we opted to do a really beautiful deep chaise lounge. Like I said, I'm a really big reader. So, how amazing is this to have this moment of a reading area in front of the Juliet balcony, which is functional. So, on a beautiful day, I can sit here and, just like be and just relax and just, embrace this incredible house. And then we wanted to bring in a lot of natural light. So a really big oversized gilded brass mirror that just reflects really nicely. So it just really kind of caps this area because having the wallpaper, we didn't feel like we needed to have artwork. The wallpaper really acts as the artwork. So having these layers is really the moments that we wanted to incorporate. To balance out the contrast that we wanted to incorporate in the space of the iron poster bed, we really wanted to have another little pop of black. So this is a marble side table. We love the fact that it has like this really cool intricate shape. But it's a perfect place for me to, sit in the morning and have coffee, read a book, look out and just kind of enjoy my day. But once again, this really is that masculine piece that balances out the feminine design of the wallpaper.
One thing that you might be noticing in this space is that it's a lot of neutrals. It's neutral upon neutral upon neutral. But the reason it's a really successful design is because each of the pieces and textures are all very different. So here, for example, you've got the pleated shade. Here you have this lovely, very matte finish ceramic texture. And then over here on the chaise lounge, again, it's neutrals, but you've got, the Mongolian fur, you've got a woven, almost like a linen style fabric, and then the more textured fabrics over here. So to me, that layering of different textures and tones all in the neutral family is the key to designing neutral spaces.
And it also creates like a timeless balance. So, you don't have to have a pop of color that you might get tired of over time. You can go very neutral and light and airy, but you're using the different layers and textures to create that interest. When it comes to, designing our primary bedroom, some people are pro TV and some people are anti-TV. My husband and I, we love nothing more than to watch Netflix in bed. So we wanted to embrace it. This is a space we really live in. So we do have a TV that's on top of the cabinet, but we ended up picking one that has a really cool texture once again, also has contrast. So when the TV is sitting on top of it, it is more cohesive with the overall color. So it doesn't stand out and it's not too offensive because the way our layout is it is in front of a window, which is not my first choice, but you know, all things considered, this still is our house. We need to live in it and it has to function for us. The other thing is, you know, we do not have a gym in our house. So we ended up wanting to pick an item that is, once again, it's gonna help with a healthy lifestyle. So we do work out in our bedroom. This contains all of our weights. So, you know, it kind of, once again, it is what it is, but we're able to really use the space and not have to be so serious. It's not, you know, always on the cover of a magazine. It is, but you know, it works for us and that's okay.
So at Curated Nest, we love designing with plants. I think plants are such an important reminder of nature in our day-to-day lives, and they just liven up a space and add kind of a sculptural element as well as softness. So this is a faux olive tree. These days you can get really good faux plants, and we are very proud of them because neither of us have a green thumb. So whether you like to be your own plant parent or whether you're just not going to do that, a great option is faux greenery.
The cool thing about this house is all the different nooks and crannies. But when we didn't have this here and you walked in, the window sat very high up and there's actually a radiator that's directly behind it. So I wanted to create something that didn't make it look like, you know, if it was a window seat, the window would be too high up, like the proportion would be completely off. So I decided to create a custom chest of drawers that really looks like it's built into the space. So we even capped out the side to work with the shoe molding. And this functions incredibly well for us. And it also doesn't draw your eye to the fact that architecturally the window is higher up. And then directly above it, once again, keeping with the style of the house, is a little niche that will forever just be a dust collector. This bed was probably the thing I was most excited for in this renovation. I've never had a king size bed, so this was a big deal for me. I always say that I really just want to make like snow angels in my bed. And so I finally got it. One of the things we really always explain to our clients is being the fact that you are in your bed for basically half of your day is to really invest in it. So, you know, go to the mattress store, go and lay on all the mattresses, see what is comfortable, you know, whether you're a back sleeper or a side sleeper, you know, invest in really nice linens, like splurge and go for the good stuff because it really does make a difference. You know, I always say that it's like this era of my life is I just want to be cozy. Like that's really what is important to me. So, you know, having the really nice linens, you know, having the really nice like down insert, cozy throws, like weighted blankets, like that's my love language. So that was really important putting this design together. And then having, you know, a few decorative pillows, having the tassels, having the little moments without being heavy or fussy. Just really, it makes me happy. This is the place that I want to be in at the end of the day. You know, I have space for my kids to sit and read in bed with me, and it warms my heart.
Fun tidbit, Erin and I found this really, really long lumbar pillow a long time ago, actually, at a trade show in North Carolina. And it was originally intended for her daughter's bed. And now it's here.
It's been commandeered.
It's been commandeered, yes. So it's an example of, look, this was an investment pillow. It was expensive. It's a very luxurious fabric, but it was worth it because it has not a blemish on it. It's lasted a few years with a young child, and now it's on her bed, and it is so cozy to cuddle up with. So worth it. Erin's absolutely right. Splurge on your bedding, splurge on your mattress. It's everything.
So originally when we bought the house, when we did our addition and the kitchen, that was really our phase one. We were not anticipating redoing our primary bathroom, but there is a shared wall with the kitchen, even though we are on the second floor. So when they ripped everything out down to studs, I got a call and they said that massive amounts of water damage. Previous owner had a hot tub pushed up against the wall that was being used as a shower base. And basically it was just 40 years of water that was going down, and they were like, any minute you're gonna just fall through the floor. So they were like, you have until this evening to get all your stuff out, and I had like 2 days to put together a design for the space. So I ended up picking, you know, very timeless marble, really going with like a brick pattern with a mosaic on the floor, just so that way then later on I could really work to kind of figure out what the overall aesthetic of the house is gonna be in here. We did commandeer some of the space from the hallway where the stairs used to be. So that way it did create a nice big walk-in shower that now doubles as a steam shower. But then later on, fast forward with Lina and myself, we created a much like cozier, richer vibe. We repainted the vanity just to kind of once again bring some depth, bring some contrast. And then layers of texture with the mirror. So I think now it feels like me. It feels like, you know, a place that I really want to be, as opposed to, you know, having to rush and make decisions, which is always, you know, not how you want to go about your design, but unfortunately that was necessity.
So what's my favorite thing about this house? I love this house. I think it's absolutely magical. It sort of transports you to another time in that it really does have a fairy tale sort of feel. I too love the architecture of this home. I think it's really unique. It adds tons of character. It's hard to buy character, you know, and this home came with all the character. And it has so much, you know, interesting nooks and crannies and beams and details that we really didn't want to over embellish it. We wanted to let the Tudor style really shine and more like complement it versus and enhance it versus overshadow it with a lot of design elements. So I think we've done that really successfully by integrating a lot of traditional furnishings and finishes, but also bringing in some really cool contemporary pieces, which we'll show you.
I think for me, the favorite would have to be the architecture of the home. It's just so unique. There's, like I said, there's a round turret at the front that just screams like a Romeo and Juliet kind of experience. There's a carriage house in the back that my husband can work in. It's just a magical setting that I haven't been able to find anywhere else. And it's cozy, you know, we can be together as a family, but we have a lot of land, so it gives my kids a lot of independence. But yeah, for me, I'd have to say it's the overall architecture. So going up the stairs, this is now my kids' floor. So it has a nice separation without being too far away from where I'm sleeping. So at the top of the stairs, we have my two kids' bedrooms. Originally, there was a door that went to a gigantic room that theoretically should have been a master bedroom, but it didn't have a bathroom that was attached to it. So we did keep our primary bedroom on its own floor, but we did separate the two rooms. One of them is a portion that is over the turret, the round area of the house. And we created that as a workout space, but in our next phase is actually gonna be created to a really cool, just like a reading room, because that's, once again, as you start living in the house, you see how you're adapting, you see how you're using the space and how it's growing with your family. And that's kind of the next phase in our life is we want to be together, we want to read and be cozy. And what cooler place than to have, you know, we're going to have a hidden bookshelf that is like a secret door that goes to a really intricate, you know, round room. It's like, how cool is that experience?
That was the one thing her husband asked for.
One thing. Sorry, Andrew.
He gave no input otherwise. He wants a secret door. And we're on board. We're on board for secret door.
So stay tuned.
Yes, that's next.
Never ending. So my son really wanted to be a part of the design of his space. He's 9 going on 10, and I wanted to create an area where, you know, it feels like a space that he is proud of, you know, one where he's now having sleepovers. He wants to bring his friends over and play and not feel like it's, you know, a baby's room. He's very much into baseball, and so he created a space that he can really grow into. We're very big on day beds, twin beds with children, because it opens up the space on the floor. So that way he can, you know, he can still pull out Legos or, whatever he wants. He could lay out and kind of create a, floor is lava, if you will. But all the pieces are really going to grow with him all the way through his teen years. So we created a desk area with a LED baseball, so he can put that on and just feel, like it has like a cool element. And we wanted to incorporate the things that are important to him. It's not about me, this is his space. But we wanted to make sure that we were, capturing a style that we were also still proud of. And it still goes with everything that, we design for our clients, with his own personal twist.
Yeah, we didn't want this to feel like a kitschy baseball explosion. We still wanted it to have a cool style. So we sort of embraced this like vintage Americana kind of vibe where we brought in some of the older imagery that you see from baseball in the 40s and 50s, just bringing in that little bit of history. And then you can see the accessories are all very boyish, a lot of leather, a lot of rich tans and navies. And it just feels like something that will grow with him. And it kind of harkens back to the old sort of plaid bedrooms you would see for boys back in the day. And this is just a wonderfully updated version of it.
So with kids' rooms, we don't really want to go and select pieces of furniture that is like geared towards children. There's the safety aspect that's involved, but any dresser can be bolted to a wall, bookshelves can be bolted. But we really wanted to bring in pieces that can grow with him. It's a place that, I even want to be, hanging out in. So, we gave him like this really cool, like leather slingback chair with the iron details, and seeing how that even incorporates to the dresser that has a similar leather and iron detail. So by no means are they matchy-matchy, but the elements flow around the room really nicely, but it doesn't feel heavy or stuffy. And even having these little moments where it doesn't look too young or youthful, but it's thematic. So these are 3 patents for baseball. You have a baseball bat, a ball, and a mitt. So, my son loves history. He loves, to read about like all the different, baseball fields, the ins and the outs of statistics. So this is totally up his alley, while it also just kind of goes with the overall style.
Another thing I love about this space is because we opted for a day bed, it kind of creates sort of like a living room feeling. Like the bed doesn't necessarily scream bed. It's very cozy, it's very layered. You can sit, you can lay down, you can curl up. And then
like the sofa vibe.
It has a sofa vibe, yeah. And then that chair is so comfortable. I'm very jealous that Erin has it in her house. I remember when we saw that chair at a trade show, I was pregnant. I was 6 months pregnant. And I literally could not get out of that chair. Erin had to...
I think I had to like 2-hand pull you out.
And so we're happy that we gave him such a cozy little reading nook.
So this was a trickier room, I always felt. Just because if you were to have a bed on the wall, there isn't really a great space for it, aside from where the window is. So we decided by using the architecture and the angles of the ceiling, it made more sense to have a bed tucked nicely in the window with the panels to the side, and then have 2 tall bookshelves. And that really helped to draw your eye up because this ceiling is actually relatively low, and there's no interesting architectural elements aside from the original iron windows. So I really like how this turned out, where it now kind of feels like it has a purpose, and it really opens up the space. So that way, like my son and my daughter, they can, hang out together and read or play games. So it's worked out really well. There is a shared bathroom for my son and daughter that's on their floor. This was one of those full gut renovations. We're talking like all plumbing, everything moved to different locations. For some reason, I guess in the 80s, they thought it was a great idea to walk in and just stare at a toilet. And then everything else was pushed to the side wall. So we decided to just completely revise the entire layout. So we now have a really functional oversized vanity to the side. So both of my kids can brush their teeth at the same time with a really wide sink. We moved the toilet to the side of that. And then we have this really nice, bright, open shower bath combo. And now you see the natural light that's coming through. It doesn't feel dark. But once again, we wanted to add contrast. So the really cool element that we wanted to incorporate here is the tile on the floor, which did feel like, once again, it goes with the idea of a Tudor house. It has like a really intricate pattern that you might see in tile from back then. And we wanted to also have a nice nook on the back wall where they can have their soaps, and actually usually they have toys on there as well, so that way they can just play in the shower. And yeah, it functions incredibly well for them, even though somehow my daughter magically always wants to come to my shower. So funny how that happens.
Steam shower.
Steam shower. She's already a diva, so.
So I think the tile work in this bathroom is really fun. Obviously the floor is very much a bold statement. So typically when we go with a bold surface, the other surface is more toned down. So this tile here, it's called a Zellage tile. Love this for its fun sort of ripply texture. It adds a nice shine and a lot of variety. So we chose to do it instead of in a traditional brick lay. We did a vertical brick lay pattern, which kind of draws your eye up and adds light. And then in this really tall niche, this was an opportunity to add a little bit of a punchy moment. And this is where we incorporated the same tile as the floor. So there's still, a lot of visual interest in this bathroom.
For me, home definitely means a place that I can leave a busy day, just relax, be true to myself, be with my family. I don't want them to feel like they can't live in a space, feel like things are too precious. They're gonna grow up so fast, and I wanna be able to have those moments with them in the house where everyone feels comfortable, we can be together as a family. And so for me, it's like I want a space where we can just be, we can live, and just feel very comfortable.
Yeah, I would say, what does home mean to me? I think family is the first word that comes to mind. I want a comfortable place to raise my kids, but I also want it to be low maintenance. And I want it to be a safe space for me to retreat to after work and after the stresses of life. And I want it to be a place to entertain. I love to entertain.
She's the extrovert, I'm the introvert. Yes. I want to just lock the doors and just kind of be and read in my dark corner, and she loves to entertain. Yes. So she's the yin to my yang.
Yes. I'm not fancy about it, but I do like having a big kitchen, and I love having all the stemware and all the fun little entertaining things. And it's rare that I break them all out at once, but I do love having friends and family over and just sharing time with them, and not necessarily having a structured activity, just having a home where you can really relax, where there's all sorts of little spots for different things.
Cozy nooks.
Cozy nooks.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Patty B. Welcome to our home in Birmingham, Alabama.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hi, I'm Patty B. Driscoll. We are here at our house in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm an artist. I have always made art and have an MFA in textiles. And since then, I've gotten more involved with painting, and I do still life paintings and sculpture. I've just recently started a hardware business called Agatha Studio, where I'm designing door knockers and cabinet pulls is my most recent thing. So I focused on textiles early on and had my MFA in weaving. I did large ikat installations in the Bay Area back in the 90s. So I was very involved with fiber art, but I was always kind of bridging this gap between design. I did restoration work on antique Persian carpets, and I worked in the Dongia showroom in San Francisco. So I've always kind of been involved with design, but I'm not a designer. I'm a full-time studio practicing artist. So on December the 8th, 2013, we were down in downtown, which is close by, at a Lessons and Carols Christmas program where our daughter was singing, and we had all of our phones cut off because it was being filmed for PBS. And lightning struck our house during that time. Our house was built in 1925, and it actually, we think it struck outside, and the fire started in this room where we're sitting. The sofa that would have been right here actually burned to the ground. It all worked out in the end, but it was a big hiccup in our life, and took us 2 years to rebuild. During the fire, our dog and 2 cats at the time were inside the house, but they survived and were rescued about 4 hours into the fire. And we lost everything on the attic level, and then pretty much everything else was saved but ruined by water and fire. So anyway, that's kind of changed the trajectory of a lot of things that we've done in our lives. And but we love our house and we love the rebuild. So, in wondering if we were going to rebuild or not, we never really questioned that. We immediately, standing outside in the rain, watching our house burn, we said we're going to rebuild it exactly. We love this house so much from the get-go. It's really an incredibly unique house. We're the 4th people to live in it. We made very complicated decisions to go back exactly with the molding. The only thing we changed was a little bit of the footprint, where we really maintained all of the original parts of the house, but where there was some exterior areas within the design of the house, we grabbed that space and used it and made it better. So it's very original, and in some ways I think it got better. We put in windows that were more similar to the old house and like what it was in the 20s. So it's just been a great project. Welcome to the entrance hall. This is one of my favorite rooms. It's this kind of cool, icy lavender color called Fading Frost that's from Mystic Paints. This area ends up being a huge hub when we have parties. I often serve a punch bowl here. It's in the dining room right now, but it's fun to introduce a party with a cocktail, little special cocktail or something as everyone comes in. Love this banister that survived. Everything in this room survived our fire. So everything you see, archways, banister, we pulled the doors out like about 3 days after the fire. The doors are gorgeous, so happy we were able to save these. This is one of my favorite pieces in the house. It's a Regency console from England. I have a lot of auction finds that I ended up doing a lot of auctions after the fire because we had to fill things up. So these dolphins have become a big inspiration for me and have led into some designs that I've done with my hardware, which I'll show you later. This is one of my paintings that I just had a show last year in Tuscaloosa, and I realized in 2018 I had a big show and I sold all of those paintings, which was great, but we didn't end up with any paintings in the house. So I kept all of the paintings from this past show just to show you. This is one of, I collect a lot of silver, and so does my mother, but this is one of these little pieces of silver that I did this arrangement in and then blew it up and photographed it and then painted it really large. And this is in a Stanford white frame. I buy a lot of frames at auction, and then I size my panels to the antique frames. And this is a composition about Evelyn Nesbit, which is supposed to be responding to the frame. That's a whole long decorative arts history. I've got some more artwork over here. This was my grandmother's bench, and when the fire happened, the firemen came through the front door, and I don't know what happened, but a lot got crunched here. And so several legs were broken in this little chinoiserie piece, and my grandmother's cane stand used to be here, and it got demolished, and several of her canes. Some of these canes are hers, and I bought this at auction with a bunch more of other canes and some of my favorite umbrellas. This is one of my pieces from 2016. It's a cake stand of my great-grandmother's. I have it in the butler pantry right now. I'll show it to you in a minute. But I got really into Dutch still life, and that's what was happening here. This is one of my favorite rooms in the house. It's my coat closet, which I love having a little splurge spot. So I did a little Hermes wallpaper for that. So this is my grandmother's bench that I covered with an antique toile that I love, that's in these same kind of purple lilac colors that work with this room. This is a piece by Helen Miranda Wilson that I bought from Cape Cod in Provincetown. And this is one of my gilded pieces that's part of my St. Agatha series. And there's a lot of that at the Birmingham Museum of Art. St. Agatha was the patron saint of breast cancer and assault victims. So very female inspired, exciting work that I like. This is my a new piece from Mexico, from San Miguel de Allende, and it's from Michoacan. It's a pineapple, and I just love the textures. I love it sitting in this niche and the way it's working. I hand carried it home. Love it. Lots of things have come out of this. My whole practice working in sculpture and hardware came from having to choose hardware for this house, everything down to hinges and every knob. So I have a binder just on hardware, and that has now led me into, and we'll talk about that later, but it's led me into a whole practice of sculpting and doing foundry work. But we really understand this house now and have made it function so well. When it was framed up, and to go back and see an open frame of a house and utilize spaces that you wouldn't have known that were there beforehand, that's been awesome, just to be able to expand storage. And I have a lot of closets that do different things for me, and it functions really well, and I wouldn't have had that beforehand. So here is our living room, and this is a huge room. For the first few years that we lived here, we just had a ping pong table, and it sat empty, but it was really fun. So gradually we've added different things, layered, and just enjoyed everything about this room. It's so big that I use this half as my studio. This is where all my sketches are, and I'm working on French matting techniques, and this is where my hardware prototypes have come just as of late, where I'm kind of playing with these and checking things out. This is one of my door knockers that's out in the garden. So anyway, this is my inventory right now. This is a piece that I love. It's a George III chinois cabinet that I keep all of my different still life things. It's kind of a curio. So it has all of these super cool little drawers and different things for collecting, and I just love it. I collect a lot of ribbons, and these are pieces, like this is that little cornucopia piece that I used for that still life painting. So I've painted all of these different objects, and there are pieces in here that I love, that I'm curious about, that I'm probably going to use as subject matter later on. This is a painting that I did actually when I think I was 15. Because of the fire that happened in this room, that entire wall over there was covered with art, and it was mostly melted or damaged enough that we lost the bulk of our art. So when I went back to redecorate this room, doing auction finds, this and that, my mother found this in the back of a closet at her house. So up it went. It was never finished, but it was during the Ethiopian famine of, I think, 1985 that I painted that. And then I have a whole collection of frames that are just waiting for still lifes that are above the mantelpiece. That's a painting of Judith killing Holofernes that I bought at auction. And I love early American, early 20th century aesthetic movement. These are just some of my favorite types of frames. I love gilding, and I have a real appreciation for water gilding. And I just can't stop buying these. This is also one of my favorite pieces. This also belonged to J. Hyde Crawford, who was the illustrator that did the Bonwit Teller violets. And I have a whole body of work that's based on Bonwit Teller about those violets, and that's a whole nother story. But this tabouret is one of my favorite things that I own that was from his estate. As far as decorating a room this big, I've looked at, Sister Parish, Nancy Lancaster, just all those classic rooms that were big, and how you create different seating arrangements. This area around the bay window has become its own area. And then there's 3 different clusters going on. The Knoll sofa in this bright magenta, this is a Nina Campbell magenta linen, and it anchors, pulling it out into the room really makes a huge anchor and divides up the space really well. So, I like flow. It seems the more I put in here, it kind of works. We always need more chairs when we have a party and pulling things up, and we've had a lot of people in this room, and a lot of gift opening and things like that. So I mess with it, I overdo it, and then I pull it back down and try to reboot. And this is all in flux right now. Nothing's ever really staying the same. I make a lot of crazy decisions and then kind of rework them. But I try not to be afraid to do it. It drives my husband crazy. I like to rearrange furniture a lot. So this is one of my kudzu paintings that I framed in wicker. Most people don't know that kudzu blooms, and it's during the time, I always remember it because it's hurricane season. The bloom is this gorgeous magenta that hangs under the wild vine. And a lot of people don't even know what kudzu is a invasive vine that was planted by the US government in the 30s. In I think Virginia and South, but it was to hold the soil in place. And now it is growing all over the South, and it's just a very invasive species. But I like using this strong will of kudzu as a metaphor for women. So that's what this piece was about. So this is our sunroom. It was originally an open loggia, and previous owners closed it in, and now we actually have these awesome windows that these open up, I love, and then it can become a screen porch. So when we bought the house, there were some old 1980s windows that were great, they worked, but this was pretty nice to be able to put in these new windows that feel older. Also, our the pool was designed, I think, in the early 80s, late 70s, and it was a whole lot of concrete. So we took half of the pool and made it smaller and put a spa in it, and then planted boxwoods around it and took away all the concrete just so it feels like a garden area. And it just is kind of softened this whole space. I love this room. It feels like you're outside even when you're inside. And we put this monster TV over here. So yes, we watch a lot of TV. This is where I do my binging. Let's head on into the dining room. So I am preparing for a close family friend's baby shower, which we're excited about. And for this party, we're using the punch bowl up here. This is a punch bowl that my mother actually bought when she was 22 in Windsor, England, for my grandmother. So it's really special, and I love having a punch. It kind of sets the tone for a party. I had my niece's bridal shower a year and a half ago, and a tornado went overhead. No one was worried about the hurricane. Just enough fun punch makes everything at ease. So these are all auction and estate sale finds that I've collected over the years. This piece had been gilded and was really, really bright, and it survived our fire and got smoked, so it gained about 200 years in patina. So it's just right now. This room, the dining room was much larger and kind of off-centered, and what we did, we closed it in, made it a little bit smaller, and curved the walls. And as I was saying earlier, this is really my favorite room now. We did this Gracie wallpaper, and it's just my favorite. Just feels like we're in a nest and that bees and birds are flying all over. I made my niece's wedding cake last year that was inspired by this wallpaper, kind of chinoiserie Gracie style. Let's see, what else? This is these are mixes of antiques from my husband's family, so it's a mix of Southern and New England. Dave his family was Boston and Rhode Island. This was his grandmother's, where they used to serve oyster stew out of in Boston. And this was his mother's coffee and tea set, which I just love. It's an old Tiffany piece, and it was a wedding gift from her grandmother in 1959. So anyway, we're gonna have a fun party here. I was pulling out all these linens. My mother collects a lot of linens, and several of these are hers. This table is huge. I bought it again at auction. I think it's 11 feet. So it's hard to find a tablecloth that's gonna work with this, but we've been playing with a lot of the different vintage cloths, and it's one thing I really love is just looking back, the textile work that is done with vintage and antique cloths. This is called a handkerchief cloth, and it belonged to my great aunt Babe, and it's made of multiple handkerchiefs sewn together. She was the registrar at the University of Montevallo, and all of her students made this for her. I just think it's so lovely. Her last name was Hendricks. I think it's exciting that there's an appreciation for linens and antiques. I'm excited about Grand Millennial and people appreciating things. I hope my children start appreciating things like this. This is my mother's that with her monogram. And I have a whole linen closet upstairs just full of different things. So we share and trade out for different parties. So these pulls were my first foray into sculpting for metal. I had taught myself how to sculpt really by making, it was during graduate school, I started making cakes and taking them to friends' houses. So I started making sugar flowers and taught myself how to sculpt there. So I really started with sugar, and then we got to the place with the rebuild of this house, and I had pretty much run out of money, and I wanted something like this to feed off of the chinois idea. And I was really inspired by that Regency console. So I wanted dolphins, and I couldn't afford the ones that I liked. And so I decided to learn how to make them. So artists at Sloss Furnace helped walk me through the process, and I sculpted these in clay first and then had these cast at Sloss. And since then, that has blown up into this whole adventure with hardware, and so it all started with these dolphins. So the style of the house is, I think, Tudor Revival, which there's quite a bit of that in Birmingham. We have a lot of great Gothic entryways, and what you'll see in the house is all original, and then we took the cues from some of those arches and elaborated on that. So a lot of it, the house had dark floors throughout, which I'm kind of a lighter person. We ended up with this house. I waited for 2 years to buy this house because I was in cahoots with the previous owner, who was a family friend. And so when it came up, it felt so good. Just the energy of this house is so good, and the flow. But there were dark areas. So after the fire, we did things like we made a marble entryway that's gray and white, and we put pine in the kitchen just to lighten the feel of the house. So decorating the home, I had Mary Evelyn McKee as a designer in Birmingham who helped me right when the fire happened, and thank goodness she was there because she helped me make some great decisions and really laid out the bones, and we worked with some really good fabric here. And since then I've been layering. I think I'm definitely a maximalist at heart. I end up kind of working in every bit of this house. I make piles. Right now we're pretty tidy, but I let things unravel. Over here is kind of like a studio. This room is a 20 by 30 foot room. So I ended up making messes everywhere and then pulling it back. But I'm also a lover of textiles. So there's textiles throughout this house. I love to travel. So it's layered upon layered and gets junky, but I kind of pull it back together again at different times. Well, we can come through from the dining room is the kitchen area, which I love. This holds a ton of people, and it ends up, as always, the party ends up in the kitchen. So it's pretty big. We did light pine wood in here, and it just keeps this really airy and kind of natural. This island was actually made from heart of pine floor joists that we pulled out of the house. So the cabinets, the counters in the butler pantry and here are this heart of pine, which I just love. Keeps it very cozy and warm, and I love an all-white kitchen, but this is actually multiple shades of gray. All the paint in the house is either Farrow and Ball or Donald Kaufman, besides that fading frost. There's some Benmore upstairs. I love picking out colors. It's just one of my favorite things. So there's about 4 different colors going on in here that just kind of balance really well. And I'm preparing cheese straws. That's what I'm going to do this afternoon for the baby shower that's coming up. So this is this very special Swedish, all the new stuff doesn't work. This is a vintage Swedish cookie press that will pump out these old-fashioned cheese straws, which is kind of a Southern prerequisite. Just took a long time to deep dive to figure this all out. So I mentioned Dave cooking earlier. We love to keep this little faux area under this island where we keep our heaviest Dutch ovens, because he will do just a great all-day stew on Saturdays, and he's really the cook. So that's where this all happens. We put in this Leconche stove, which we love, and hard to choose a color that you're gonna live with forever, but this one's working, especially with these Farrow and Ball colors that we chose. It just kind of blends right in. So we did no shelves, open shelving, and just kept a really kind of fresh and airy kitchen. Okay, so I wanted to show y'all these because I've talked about my napkin rings in silver that I love so much. I've started block printing this all. I'm making hardware based on some buttons that I found up in our little farmhouse in Maine. That's a whole nother project. But I had this block carved in Jaipur, and that's one button that I've based it on that was actually this big. But so I'm starting this whole different design and using our house in Maine for kind of a lab that I'm going to do fabrics and wallpaper for. So my nephew is getting married next week, and I've block printed napkins for him to go with. I'm so excited about this. And my soon-to-be his fiance, these gorgeous sterling napkin rings with their initials that were already on it. These are from England, and I think they're just going to be so pretty. She likes kind of natural colors, and I just think it's going to be awesome. Kind of old and new at the same time. Okay, I was going to show you a quick little demo of how I do these flower arrangements for this baby shower. So I'm going to use all these antique baby cups. I also use these on Christmas trees, and it's just fun. So to do a base, like this is a nice little piece of hydrangea that's really fluffy and ends up being a base. This is so easy. And then this little pretty thistle and some delphinium. Kind of make it wispy. It just doesn't need much. I mean, that looks great as is. I also like using herbs. So I've cut mint this morning. And just get a little touch of green. That just kind of does the trick. Easy, easy peasy. A ton of these all over the table are great. Little nosegays. So we have this big farm table that I love. If it's just the two of us, we work on the end of this, but I've set this for family that's coming over. We love Simon Pierce, and I love using these are 19th century French absinthe glasses that are hand blown. So it works so well with the Simon Pierce, it's old and new, but all feels kind of modern and fresh. I love these napkin rings, sterling napkin rings that have numbers on them, which I'm hoping, I wish I'd had time and I would have, my gift to my nephew has his initial on it, but I'm hoping they'll engrave numbers on the back, because if you're having family or you're at a vacation spot, then you can reuse the napkins depending if they're not overly soiled, but everyone you reuse the same napkin if you know your number. Our children always fought for their certain number that they had on their napkin ring, so I love collecting these. This is a Nantucket basket that belonged to my mother-in-law that we had up in our bedroom, and when the fire happened, the roof collapsed and completely squished this, which is so sad, but now it's almost become an art piece. It has this beautiful piece of scrimshaw that has the Ferris wheel from, merry-go-round from Watch Hill, and I just love it. So anyway, it lives here, and it's just one of my favorite things. This is one of my paintings that took me a long time, about 6 years to finish it, but it's one of my favorites. These are fava beans that I hand carried from New York home and the David Austin roses that we grow outside. So I knew I was an artist at an early age, and I think when when someone tells you you're good at something, that often turns into your passion. And so I could draw early on, and so I was always taking art classes. I'm not an athlete, I'm not an academic. It was always easy for me to make art. So I've worked in a lot of different mediums, fiber, painting, drawing, sketching. I've taken a twirl with cake decorating, and it always keeps me busy. So right now I have a studio downtown where I paint, and that's my major focus, but then I also have this side business with Agatha Studio. This is the kitchen area, and this is the butler pantry that we tweaked. It used to be a really skinny hall kind of butler pantry, and we created actually a full-on room in here, which is so awesome because I do a lot of flowers here. It stays cool. We have this German silver sink that I can just dump all the flowers in and then prep stuff in here. And then after that's done, for this party that's coming up, flowers will be on the table, and I will ice all the Prosecco and lemonade and whatever in here. This silver sink keeps things cold for like 2 days. And I love these. We did not have this in the house beforehand, but it's pretty special, and there are several historic homes in Birmingham that do have it, that are close to this neighborhood. And what's so amazing about it is that you can wash silver and you can wash china and crystal, and because of the softness of the silver, it doesn't chip things. So this is where cleanup happens. So it ends up being a flower arranging, ice cooler, and then the cleanup spot. And it also ends up being a party central. Interestingly enough, it's kind of big, and we put the freezer in here, and so we divided up the fridge and the freezer, which I think was a really good decision, because you're really never going to the fridge and the freezer at the same time. So we bring everything in here, load up the freezer, and it ended up making both of these units look like cabinetry. And this is where I keep all of our different china and silver and different serving pieces down here. This is the piece that's in that painting, which I think is just such a cool silver piece. So I'm probably gonna do little petitfours on this. So this was in that painting in the entrance hall. So this is the bulk of my china, this heron pattern. I have a lot of china, but this is the one that stays out the most. And these are different pieces. This is a Jeanne pattern. Those are my mother-in-law's little gilded pieces, and I have another Queen Victoria up here. I love this little sweet French pattern. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the silver closet, which is really kind of my favorite room. This is all covered in Pacific cloth, which is the anti-tarnish cloth, and it matched. I love this color because it was kind of the perfect mint that matched the Gracie. So for the most part, it keeps this pretty fresh. I polish once a year because I am the butler from the butler pantry. But these are a lot of different pieces, some from Dave's family and some from mine. And these are my grandmother's goblets with her initial and then our initials, my initials on the other side, which is really fun. And I use a lot of these for my still life paintings. So when people arrive here, I think they love it. The entryway is beautiful, and it's what was designed in the 20s. It's dual levels and these beautiful doors and arched Gothic openings. But mostly, the greatest thing about this house is that it's an awesome entertaining house, and it feels warm. So the lady that I bought the house from, she let me sneak in and see it, ahead of time, and I asked her where she put her Christmas tree, and it was obvious. It's in this beautiful bay window. We host a lot of parties, a lot of family. I'm a member of a big family in town, and so we're having showers. I'm prepping for a baby shower that I'll show you in a little bit. But that's what the house flows and feels really good for entertaining. This is our den. I love all these pocket doors. This is where we live and spend most of our time. This is one of my favorite paintings. It's by Jimmy Lee Sudduth, who was an artist in Alabama, just outside of Tuscaloosa. He's famous for using Alabama mud, red clay, and this was called Whoa, which I love. Bought that when my kids were really little, and we have pictures of them standing next to it, just teeny tiny. Auction finds that are in this house. This is from Mario Boata's auction. There's a Perdonium that my husband bought. It's probably one of the stranger things in that auction. This would belong to J. Hyde Crawford from his estate. Also in here are lots of textiles that I love. We took our kids to Peru, and as I said before, I was a weaver, so at one point I owned 3 looms and was weaving all the time during my graduate work. But these are from a town outside of Cusco called Chinchero, and they're just some of the greatest textiles. So I just throw things over. I did make pillows out of some of them, and these are just kind of loose. This one was done on a backstrap loom, and it's just sitting here, you know, just kind of flopped on, but brings a pop of color, and I love it in here. So as far as mixing patterns and with textiles, I do think there's layering, and you layer and layer, and then at times it can just seem kind of crazy, but you just keep going, and then you pull back and edit again. These lampshades are new, and I would have thought they were too much at the time with this, but it's all working. Sometimes I think more altogether works better, as long as there's some little thread of unity. So there's a lot of this oxblood that's going on in the weavings and the magenta, and it all seems to be in harmony. So this is one of the first still life paintings that I did. My mother had given me this piece of Heron cornucopia for my 30th birthday. So it was in my early 30s when I started doing still life. And so love this, keeping this one close to the family. And then these are other pieces that I've collected from New England. I'm always trying to learn things and figuring things out. We are project people, so we're always trying to dive in and learn about things. I just gave my husband a book on thatching roofs. We thought we might want to try that at some point. And this is a really pretty entrance to the patio. So we're not spending much time outside because it's still really hot in Birmingham, but this is one of our favorite spots, and it's our pool that we painted in this dark blue and set it into stone, so it really just feels almost like a garden piece and doesn't scream pool. It's really small, and we mostly use it for the little spa hot tub here, which can fit about 10 people and has bubbles here, which is nice. So we love this little patio area. It was designed to kind of feel like a rug. So we have this brick lining and then the flagstone around it. We just got this fountain going. But the best thing was these were little windows in the living room, little bitty windows that didn't open. So we were able to tweak that and create French doors here. So this is always a really nice flow through for parties. So as far as the coziness and hominess of a house, I think we do not have wood burning fireplaces anymore. We have these little coal electric fires that are cozy, and I think just having a lot of people in the house makes it lively. And also my husband is a great cook, and he loves to do a great like beef bourguignon or gumbo, something all day Saturday, and making the house smell good. So when the kids are home, we're always doing that. There's football on the TV and just cozy, homey feeling with smells and everything sensory. Well, I love so many things about this home. I think the architecture was beautiful to start with. The molding is incredible. And then the tweaks that we've done are just all the more special. And our dining room is really incredible. We had the opportunity to rework it, so we made it smaller and curved the wall, so it kind of has this nest-like feeling, and we used a Gracie wallpaper. So I think that's my favorite part about the home, but also this home looks big, but it's almost like a really big cottage. You can hear everybody, you know, everything's kind of contained and it has a flow. There's also a lot of great access points where light crosses through the house, and that's pretty fabulous. A lot of it were smaller windows from the 20s originally, so we had the opportunity to turn those into French doors and just create a lot of flow through with light and pattern of people when they're here. And now I'm going to take you into our powder room, which is another one of my favorite small spots. This is one of our favorite things, these little pea Coren birds that were the faucet. My kids joke that when I die, they both want these, but I think the pea Coren really inspired me too to really get excited about hardware. I had just sold a painting right before the fire, and I was like, you know what? I'm buying the pea Coren birds with that money. So I love these. They were a splurge, but they've kind of started my passion for hardware. Love this room. The flooring is this really cool tile. I had originally seen this pattern at the Papacy in Avignon, and I've always loved it. It's a traditional pattern, but it's so modern. And then we covered this was a Mary Evelyn idea. We covered this entire room with this olive suede, and it's just like a jewel box, and it just always feels so good. So we're gonna go upstairs, and I was gonna show you this screen. It was in my parents' bathroom, and I gessoed it and created this Bonwit Teller screen that was part of my series on the violets. But now we're gonna go up to the bedroom. So this is our bedroom, which I love. This is Pale Powder by Farrow & Ball. It was the same color before the fire, and it's been the same color after the fire. It's my favorite color. It's so soothing, and just always makes me feel restful. So this is one of my favorite pieces in the house that we found it was through the Bunny Mellon auction. And this actually was it was a coffee table in her Virginia estate. And it was listed kind of strangely. I think it said 20th century coffee table, but I don't think it mentioned the textile that was actually set into the piece. And I believe that the textile was her mother's piece, and it's just extraordinary work that's going on here. It cost me as much to restore the textile as it did buying the piece, and that's probably why I got it, why it sold cheaply. But I love it, and it fits this room perfectly. So I love this chandelier. This was from an estate sale, but I actually know the family that it came from, and one cousin is a very close friend of mine and remembers it in the dining room of that family. So I love that it's continuing on and living in another old house, and I know its provenance is kind of cool. So this is this pretty little alabaster statue that I found in an estate sale. It was literally in a cardboard box in the garage of that sale, but it's one of my favorite things in the house. And this is a Joseph Albers print. I had another study in yellow that was down in our living room that was destroyed with the fire. That was actually a college graduation gift that my parents gave me. So I was dead set on finding another Albers, and this one I think works great here. We love this bed. It's all this different patterns of Virginie, and our linens are from Leontine. My friend Jane Scott Hodges in New Orleans was here right before I ordered these and helped me kind of brainstorm on what I was doing for this room. And then I'll take you to the closet. So this is a fire perk that I'd never expected. We had teeny tiny closets and a teeny tiny bathroom that's now the laundry room. My husband never had a shower for 7 years. He used a handheld shower. So he got an upgrade, and I'll show you that in here. So this is the little dressing room, and this is my closet, which I love. I've kept this very plain and simple with a little bow wood, Colfax and Fowler. So I had these hat boxes made. It's a place up in New Hampshire called Sarah's Hat Boxes that I sent the fabric, the bow wood up to them, and they made these little hat boxes for me, which I love, and I just store different letters and things like that in here. But working with a lot of mirror helped make the space feel all the better, and just expanded on the feeling, and I love it. It's soothing, and I can pack in here, and it's easy. I also have I haven't shown anyone this really, but I have a packing suitcase closet. So this was really a handy thing after the fire. Just had this little extra space. So I have all my suitcases and travel gear ready to go when I want to go quickly. So I love to travel and love being organized. So these are scarves that I've just made. I had these were based again on the little button design that I found in our barn in Maine. Like that is one button, but I did a repeat pattern, and then I've had these made in Italy that I'm going to be selling on my website, which I love, and they're all these different colors. This is a bag that a friend of mine, Gina Podesta, hand makes. She's in Brooklyn, but also on Deer Isle in Maine. So she hand sews all this gorgeous leather and then does this, I don't know what this knotting is. It's not a weave, but it's some kind of cool knotting. But I just love this. It's my favorite new thing. This is a statue of St. Agatha that I found in Santa Fe. It's from Lithuania, but it's another favorite that I just love having her up here. Kind of keeps things calm. So this is our bathroom, which we really expanded because this used to be an exterior space. And so what we did was just grab this space and utilize the footprint. But now I take baths every night, and it's just kind of my haven over here. So the word home, I think, it is where you are at the moment. And we've lived in a lot of homes. We lived in 2 rental houses and a hotel while we were redoing this house. And I'm pretty attached to both of those houses. They were home at the moment. But this is where we've lived the longest, and our memories are mostly here. So that's the essence of it, the memories made with family.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Amy. Welcome to my house in Dallas, Texas. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. To shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy episodes, be sure to check out the product links below for amazing furniture, accessories, and more.
My name is Amy Smith Atkins, and I have an interior design firm in Dallas, Texas called Amy's Interiors. We also have a furniture line called Amy's Interiors Collection. So we are in Dallas, Texas in University Park. I live close to SMU, and I love this area. And I moved here 18 years ago with 4 young children as a single parent, and really just needed to get into a nest and make it my own. It was built in 1926. So it is close to being a historic property. We're proud of that aspect, and I just really lightened it up with removing doors, lightening all the colors, and just establish a little more of a fresh palette. You will see as you walk through. Welcome to my living room. In keeping with a home that was built in 1926, I do not have an entryway, so you just walk right into my living room. Because of my job, I get to go to beautiful antique fairs, and this I purchased in a Paris antique fair, and I love the weight of it. I love the contrast with the colors, and weighting this space with this beautiful antique chest. This beautiful painting is very special to me. My older daughter, who is a teacher at Covenant, an art teacher, she did this painting for me, and it's from the first original square in Paris, in Marais, Place des Vosges, and it was built in the 1600s. And so she made this painting based on me and my colors and what I wanted, but she also put her siblings throughout the painting, which is very special to me. Again, and this is a good reminder to all of you, we all have sentimental things, and I purchased this in my 20s at an antique fair in Newark at the International Antique Fair in England. And you don't see many corner cabinets or corner cupboards, but it's so sentimental to me that I've kept it. Walk over into the sitting area of the space, and we have this contrast of the Abaca rug with all the color. I love the natural fibers. I love the design, and I like the way it pairs beautifully with my love for color. I designed this chair, and it's a nice little citrus pop for the room. We now are doing a furniture collection at Amy's Interiors, and we have a collection of pillows, which are represented on our sofa. The antique brass and glass table, I bought it in an antique fair, a mid-century antique fair in France, and I love it. I love having different textures throughout the room to create interest, especially in an older house. It elevates the space and makes it feel fresh and relevant. And that's a nice little secret. This is really, truly one of my most favorite pieces in the house. It's a beautiful Biedermeier chest. And I often talk about this with clients, that a Biedermeier chest is so versatile and something that you can use in most rooms of your house, but they are a people magnet. People always want to talk about the beauty of this chest and just the artistry that comes with the design. I also love collectibles, snuff jars that I've just collected along the way. I grew up in Mississippi, so I'm a proud Mississippian, but love being a Texas transplant as well. But it's very traditional in Mississippi for us to do a portrait of our children, and I have 4. So I have them throughout my house, and you don't really see that very often. But again, that is something that is important to me, and it reflects my personal style. So it is something to remember for all of us, that it's important for your house to reflect things that are important to you. A big part of who I am is I love the beach. I love seaside. It's really my happy place. And I also have good friends from college, one specifically that has a beautiful place in Naples, that over the years would let me come down there for a weekend or a getaway. And the shells are incredible. So I have collected a lot of the shells from her place down in Naples, and sand dollars as well. So these are very special to me. We discussed books and how important they are. They're great for layering, they're great for interest, and it's also important to reflect your interest. So 2 of my favorites are actually right here at my front door. We are very inspired by Summer Thornton. She's a designer in Chicago, and we love her use of color. But we also love Pierre Frey. A lot of the fabrics and textiles, wallpaper in my master bath is Pierre Frey. When we went to France one time for an antique fair, we got to go to the archives of Pierre Frey, and so that was very special. We got to see the original prints from the early 1800s and mill through them and hear about what inspired the different prints and the history of them. And I love history, so that was pretty amazing. So those are 2 examples of why those books are important to me. One thing that you will see throughout the home is my love for antique transferware from the Rose Famille family. I have the medallion, I have rose mandarin, just different collectibles that I've picked up along the way that I love. I love the way that their colors are reflected in current trends with those brighter melon type colors, and they're a passion of mine. I have several favorite rooms in the house. I love the sitting room, which you will see shortly. It's very small, it's full of light. My neighbor Betty, who was an older lady, told me that that's where she used to take piano lessons when she was a little girl. Her father was the chancellor at SMU, and she had such fond memories. She said there was always music coming from this house. So I brought my childhood piano here. Even though aesthetically it's not so beautiful, it creates a memory and a feeling, and I do think a house often is the feelings that you have in it. So that room brings me a lot of joy. I also have a tiny porch that I love, and I became one with it during COVID when I was needing my space from other family members. So I would go out on my porch and kind of take in the serenity of quiet. And right off the living room, we have our sitting room. I told you earlier that I live on a street where a lot of the professors from SMU used to live, and the people that used to own this house originally in 1926, they were music professors. So it was a music professor and his wife. So they taught piano and violin, and they used this as their music room. So I had to bring my childhood piano, even though it's not super special. It's meaningful. And having 4 kids, several of them took piano lessons and did piano. It's a tight little cozy spot that has beautiful lighting, and I have lit it up with a lot of color. This Eames chair I bought in a flea market outside of London at the Newark Fair, and just put purple mohair on it when I came back. And then I got a Ming chair along the way and just had it painted black lacquer. I think it's a nice touch to have something that is black lacquered. Again, I have an antique small drum table there, and then a mid-century knoll table that I bought in France at an antique fair. I love the height, and I love the size and scale. Again, you see where I have the rose medallion scattered throughout the home, and a couple of my kids' portraits. I love this little spot in the house because, again, in the morning sun, it's just a bright and cheerful spot, and I'm kind of crazy about this little table that I told you that I bought at an antique fair. I love the size and scale and it being small. I think a lot of times people are scared of white marble, and it really only gets better with patina and age. And this is a great place for me to read my Bible or have my coffee or return emails. So I end up landing here a lot. And I love the palette as well. This beautiful rug that I got from Patterson Flynn, which is the rug company of Schumacher. But I love that it just brightens up this little small space. I was inspired by this home when I first came here. I just resonated with this house. It felt like I had a heart and soul. It felt like a warm hug, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's just a Tudor cottage. It's very simple, but it has smaller room sizes, which I appreciate because when you're with people, you're with people. And I mean, it's of course missing some things that you might get in a traditional house. I don't have an entry, but you walk right into the space, and I've just gotten used to it. The galley kitchen is smaller, but just like everything, you get used to it. It just challenged me creatively to add more color, add more value, add interest. I love antiques, obviously, with my work, and so adding unique pieces really stand out in a smaller home that's got a really simple, lovely palette. Here we are in the primary bedroom. It's wonderful because this old house has a downstairs primary, and people have said, well, should you put a bed against a window? And, you know, ideally no, but in this space, we had to do it because of utilizing a space plan with a king bed. So again, we have our Amy's Interiors collection, and we have our Biedermeier reproductions of side tables that we have in here, and we also have our bed that we can customize in any fabric, any stain color. So we just have a lot of options, but I've got it represented here in my room. Another piece in our collection is a Sophie bench that we're crazy about. We were inspired by the curves of an antique piece, and we put the brass caps on it, and we just have a high gloss wood finish. We can also do in a painted finish. We can do any fabric. In this circumstance, we went ahead and matched the decorative pillows, the Cotton and Tout. And again, with the Eleanor side tables, we can also do in a painted finish. So we can customize in any way. We can customize size, color, stain. So it's just a creative process. But this is a small reflection. And another thing that y'all might see throughout the house is something that I love is the fabric lampshades. I feel like that adds a lot of unique flavor. It just customizes a lamp, and it adds color. So consider that. We are also about to do a lampshade offering on our Amy's Interiors collection. So we just felt like that's a great way to make a space your own. I have 2 daughters, and both of them are artistic, and I am not. I'm creative, but I'm not artistic. But my youngest daughter did this when she was 5, and it's very meaningful to me. So then my oldest daughter did these black and white drawings when she was in 9th grade. So those are very meaningful to me as well. And it's a good reminder to everyone that often things that are important to you need to be expressed in a beautiful way somewhere in your home. Sometimes I might put things that are more meaningful but might not be as current, and yet they're special to me. I might put it in a more of a private space, but that's why I love these. This piece of art is very meaningful to me as well. In going to the antique fairs over time in France, I've made a French artist friend and named Shiam, and I love her. And she is married to a wonderful person that when we've gone over there, we'll get to have meals with them and be with them. But she is very big on empowering women. And this series is Women Helping Women. And I think she reflects, how can we support one another instead of, compete or steal ideas? How can we help one another? And I love that message. And I love, of course, all the beautiful colors that obviously you can tell. I love color. Another thing to mention about Shiam's art is she does all of these beautiful works on antique architectural prints. So she loves the texture and she likes the way the color bleeds from it. And so, in the light, they're a little bit iridescent, and she just does beautiful works. So that's very important to me. Another inspiration of mine is Asian art, artifacts, Chinese sewing boxes, Chinese snuff jars. I just love Asian art. And these are some beautiful hand-painted pieces that we bought at the antique fair in Paris, and adds just a unique coloration as well as something interesting. I feel like adding old pieces, antique pieces, when you use color is key because it establishes the room and it keeps it from looking too whimsical and too shallow is maybe the best way to say it. So it adds a lot of value. And off of the primary, I have the primary bath. Again, this space is original to the house, so it's smaller. but magical because of the pure fray wallpaper that I love. Again, all things Asian that I love, and you see it represented here. It's just beautiful. Again, this is something that we were able to go into the artifacts of the Pure Fray in Paris and learn about the history behind some of the patterns and prints. So it became more and more enticing, I should say. But again, I told y'all over time, it did take me the layers of time to get new counters, paint, wallpaper, all those things, but sometimes you just have to be patient with ourselves in the process. I purchased this years ago from an antique fair in England, and I use it for jewelry, but I didn't realize, and it's kind of all junked up, but I didn't realize the wood makers would make these little tiny replicas of the piece that they were going to make for the person that ordered it for approval. So this is what we call a CFA. So it is a perfect little jewelry box, but at one point it was a large piece of furniture for someone. This is another thing that is very meaningful to me in my little area where I get ready in the mornings. But again, I've got this transferware that I love, all the beautiful Asian pieces, but it's the pictures of my parents, both of my parents, when they were both at college at Delta State, and she was this Delta girl beauty, and he had just come home from World War II, and that is so meaningful. And it's a reminder that you need to put your pictures of your people throughout the house. That gives you that sense of who you are and who you are because of the people that went before you. My overall design is a mixture of antiques. I was in the antique industry in my 20s, and I became very passionate about the origin history of pieces, and I am also passionate about color and clean design. So my house is a mix of those things. Over time, I have gone to France to the antique fair on multiple occasions, and England and different parts of America, and that has been very fortunate for me to get a good eye for what pairs beautifully with our style, which you will see as you walk through the house. Welcome to our family room. This is where most of our time is spent. As you can see from the layout, it was a difficult challenge to find seating. We have the stairway here, we have a large opening here, we have a fireplace, windows there. So we just did a custom love seat for this space and just covered up that entire corner. But again, just enough space to do a small chair on swivel with a couple of our ottomans that are from our furniture collection. And those make it super versatile when we have more people over, when we need to pull things in. But again, it's a real small space that can work. And I think something about this room too is it's pretty dark because we only have the windows right there that were original to the house. So with that, we just went ahead and tried to put a lot of color in here and add some, antique pieces that have value. Again, the old Chinese boxes, our layers of books, the old porcelain. Again, you see on this Welch dresser, we have some of the Chinese boxes as well as some of the rose medallion, rose mandarin that I've collected over the years. This piece I purchased at a London antique fair years ago, and it was, I think originally they would say they were a dumb waiter. They would use them to stack plates and serve off of. But now it works beautifully as a TV console. So I love that piece. And again, I'm crazy about all things French. And this piece I actually purchased in Dallas from Nick Brock. It's a painting from 1925, a still life from George Klein, which I think is beautiful. Again, it has all the colors that I'm so crazy about. So that's something that's special. This pair of side tables I am really crazy about. They are Jansen. They're mid-century. I bought them at the antique fair in France, and I really love them so much. I love that they add interest. I'm not usually someone that uses a whole lot of red, but this color and the value of having something very special and unique, I love them. I grew up in Mississippi, and we always had a fire in the fireplace. It was something my dad always nurtured, the fire. And so now I've kept this a wood-burning fireplace, and I am quick to make fires throughout the winter. Even when it's not very cold, I love to get some pinon and do the wood-burning fireplace when I can, as quickly as I can, I should say. I did get this little fire screen in France, and it was perfect because this is an old fireplace mantle, and obviously if I were to build it today, I might not pick this layout, but this is what I had, so I painted it, and this opening was rather small, but this fit it perfectly, so you make do. This piece of art I love. It's by Erin Lapret. She is local. She used to live in France. I loved her use of color. It's also, again, the theme. I love seaside and the beach. This reminds me of the community of Seaside, and this looks like the little chapel in Seaside. So I asked Erin to put a little cross on the top, and this looks like some of the little beach homes. So that brings me a lot of joy. When we first moved in, this was 18 years ago, and I had 4 young kids, and it was important to me that the kids felt at home quickly, and I feel like I keep repeating myself, but I do think having those family photos brings about a sense of home. And so I did kind of cover the walls with pictures of the kids. With time, I have replaced some with paintings, and here, since it's the family space, I put memories on the walls, and brings me a lot of joy. These pieces are wax seals, and we bought these in Paris, and we just had them framed, so when people would write letters, they'd use their stamp and seal. So these are just a collection of the seals, and just a creative way to add color and value to a room, and maybe a little more reasonable way to put something on the walls if you don't want to invest in a large piece of art. And right off the family, again, we had this original opening to the kitchen. It had doors. Every interior space had doors, so I removed all of those to open everything up. But then in here, I've got this galley style kitchen, so it's just a nice wide space to work with. Our small little breakfast room, and I love this beautiful antique rug that I got from Farzine, who's one of my favorites down at the Design Center. But it fit the space perfectly. And again, my love for the beach, Teal Duncan did that beautiful piece that is serenely on that wall. So And this, of course, leads into our backyard, but this is a great move-through space. And right off the kitchen is the dining room. This used to have a waiter door, so I removed that, but it's, again, cozy, but yet gets the job done. I have a beautiful dining table, sideboard, and corner cabinet that I got in Newark at the International Antique Fair maybe 30 years ago. So it is a testament to how if you buy a beautiful antique piece that it can stand the test of time. It adds a lot of value to a space, and when you buy something beautiful like that, it doesn't need changing. I have said this a lot with clients that on the front end it is a big investment, but it pays off. These chairs we had custom made in the last 4 or 5 years. It's a Groves Brothers, and they're out of Fort Worth, and they do a beautiful job at doing custom colors, and I love this color. This piece of art I'm crazy about. It's by Emily York, and I'm a biker. I love to bike, and so I saw it, and there's a biker in the front, and then there's a biker behind her, and me and my bestie, she loves to bike as well, and we kid about the fact that sometimes I'm out in front of her, but to be honest, that's the only thing that I'm better at than her, because she's better at everything else. But that kind of reflects a fun bike ride that we have taken so many. Again, you see my love for Asian plates and Chinese pieces. Again, my portraits. Another piece that I really love is this bar cart. I bought it at an antique fair in Paris. It has removable trays, and it will actually fold up. But again, like I spoke about earlier, it's lovely to have just another contrasting piece that's got black lacquer on it. My parents were married for 50 years before they passed away, and these 4 glasses were a wedding gift to my parents. I love this vase. I have to tell y'all, this Asian vase is just very beautiful to me. It makes me excited. It's got every color in the rainbow. It's unique. And there were a pair, and I actually sold the other one to a client, and I loved this client, and we kidded about the fact that it's like those little heart bracelet or heart necklaces that you have with your boyfriend in junior high school or high school, where you got half the heart and they got the other half. Well, she got half my heart, and she knows it. She knows that I'm glad that it's in good hands, so we laughed about it. Before we step outside, I wanted to showcase just 2 pieces that are important to me. So this is Kathy Lancaster. I grew up with her husband, and she has a gallery in Chicago, and she's a dear friend, and I love her. So it reminds me of her and her beautiful use of color. And this piece is meaningful to me because my oldest daughter won this in an art competition in college, and their challenge or the whole meaning behind it was to pick something that is a still life, something that's simple, but bring it to life. And so she brought this mixer to life with the use of color, and it reminds you of our challenge is to often help you guys bring color in to just enliven a space and create a whole lot of life, and that's what she did with this piece. I'm passionate about the fact that everyone's personality needs to be reflected in their space. When clients ask us to come in and give them advice, we always ask them what's important to them. And I think, it's interesting to us every time we do an installation and we bring photos. We ask the clients to send us maybe 40 or 50 photos, and we have them blown up and framed and scattered throughout the house with, various accessories, and it's always so meaningful to them, and it just reminds you that we're all that way. When you're surrounded by your people, you're happy, and we love that aspect. But just different aspects of coffee table books and color, things that are reflective of your interest so that it feels more like a home versus a showroom. And that's always our goal when we're meeting with our clients. Okay, this is one of my favorite spots. This is my my backyard, and I really desperately needed a little place for myself when I went through COVID. I had 2 kids here that were doing a college curriculum. I had one client that was building a house, and we had our other clients, of course, that we were doing all their remodeling, and it was just a full plate. And so I really wanted a back porch, but I couldn't really do it at the time. So I found out about these retractable screens. So this little space was already here, and I put a TV out here, and then added this retractable screen so that I didn't have to worry about mosquitoes and bugs. And so it provided a space that felt like a room. And again, it gives you that reminder of, you might not have a big space, like I don't have a big space, but creatively figuring out ways that you can make it work for you. And this really works for me. It makes me so happy. I've got my couple little chairs out here. I've got a little fire pit and my grill. And then, of course, during COVID, my grass was always dead out here because I have a beautiful tree. And I decided to go ahead and get turf. And I built a little pool. And that has been a major asset to this space. When the guy came out to meet with me about building a pool, he mentioned that I really didn't have that much space to deal with, and yet it's all I need. It's been perfect, and it's deep enough that I can tread water and just enjoy being in just the refreshing part of water during the summer. But this was really a unique feature. When they came to build the pool and dig the hole, they said, if we hit rock, we're going to have to charge you a little bit more. So you're going to really hope that we don't hit rock. And so then, of course, 4 or 5 days later, they were like, we hit rock. So it's going to be more. But the upside to that is there was a fresh spring in the rock, and it will keep your pool cooler. So my pool feels like it's chilled in the summer. And they said another advantage to having the rock under my house was the fact that I don't have cracking in my foundation, and my house is almost 100 years old. So that's the upside to having your house built on a rock. I think that might be a verse in Proverbs, but it's pretty amazing. Would love to mention that because this is turf and there's nice shade, and I've got the pool over here with the water feature, we'll come out here when I have friends over and eat outside, and I just keep a fold up table in the garage and cover with a pretty cloth, and it's just such an easy way to entertain, and not having a whole lot of space inside. This is just a way to create more space. Another reason why I did the pool that way and that small is I did not want to hurt my oak tree. When we first moved into this house 18 years ago, it was barely big enough to put a little swing on a branch for my youngest daughter. And so I didn't want to hurt the root system. And so that's worked out because it gave me usable space here to entertain and also have the pool and not hurt the tree. I love the question, what does home mean to you? Because I do think home is a place where you recharge, you rejuvenate, you really are able to settle in, find peace, and get ready to get back out to it.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.